Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah!
Friday! Let's go.
I got the center seat.
Oh, man.
Tall man's in the middle.
good.
G. Bush is still sick.
He's
G was
puking
thinking
all
about
over the
you.
place, apparently.
Yeah, we told him
You
keep
stay,
your vomit
stay home.
in your place.
Look, stay
Now, by the
home.
way, guys, yesterday I got us started with driving. I got to get started with something else. Unfortunately, we have the appropriate panel that will appreciate this, because you have to be born in the 70s or earlier to appreciate the rabbit hole I went down last night.
Okay.
I played the video for We Are the World. You remember We Are the
absolutely,
World? Right?
absolutely.
Mikey's like, what's We Are the
Michael
World?
Jackson,
All of
Stevie
them.
Wonder.
Lionel
So
Richie, all of them.
Okay,
Right.
first of all, the collection of talent in that room was absurd.
Absurd.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Maybe the greatest ever assembled in one room.
It was all Americans. It was
Yeah.
all Americans because it was USA for Africa. Remember
Right,
that?
yep.
Was what they did it for. And I was like, who are the only big stars of that era who weren't there? And
Who weren't there?
The two biggest stars. Can you think of who? It's tough.
Was Bruce there?
Bruce was.
Bruce was there.
Yes. He was so seeing him like
Prince.
That's one of the two.
Prince was not in that
Prince
video.
was not in there. Apparently, I read
video.
after I went down the rabbit hole, Prince was supposed to be there, and then he didn't show up, and there was all these conspiracy theories.
That might be
and
the
I'm
most Prince thing ever.
Of course. The other one,
let me think.
I'll give you a clue. The other one's a woman. It was a big star in the 80s.
Sure.
Madonna. Nice job, Steve.
Steve got that.
Director Steve confirmed. Born
Those were the two
Now, did you
big
read
stars.
about the drama that
60s.
ensued with Cyndi Lauper being a diva, and some of the other stars were looking at her like, who the hell do you think you are? You know, you're not in some
Yes.
random collection of artists here.
Right.
And there was somebody else, I can't remember now, who it was Waylon Jennings or somebody that like walked out in the middle of it or whatever.
Wow, no
But it was
kidding.
just like, my wife and I were watching the video and we're like, oh my God. And
There should be a behind the music on that song.
how has there not been?
I don't know
You
because
didn't even, Lionel Richie, Billy Joel, you already mentioned a bunch of them. Plus
Michael
Kenny
Jackson,
Rogers,
obviously.
Michael Jackson was amazing.
it was
You
incredible.
had the greatest of the greatest.
And what was
The
what was
Pointer
crazy with the
Sisters,
Cyndi,
no Aretha Franklin, although she's a little pre that era, but
she was-
Tina Turner was in it.
Jiminy Christmas.
It was Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis and the News.
Right.
And you would think that there would, because you would have been aware in the moment that this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Right.
You would think that there would have been 20 cameras rolling everywhere.
Yes.
Correct.
Just catching
Yes.
everything that happens.
Yes, and so I've been singing the song all morning, doing the different voices. Paul Simon we forgot about, and Bob Dylan was there. And,
It really was incredible. Now, was Michael Jackson kind of the spearhead of that
I
thing?
thought he was like directing.
I always
Yes.
thought that was kind of his thing.
I think, believe it or not, I think he co-wrote it with Huey Lewis of all people. Like Huey Lewis was pretty big back then.
Huey actually was a good songwriter.
Right, yeah.
That wrote a lot of hits for people other than himself.
Yeah, I loved his music too. But it was.
Where did you run into this? On YouTube?
I saw something on YouTube and I was like, I want to watch this video. I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah.
so much fun. And then I made my wife watch it. And then she's like, soon after that, Saturday Night Live did a sketch about that.
Oh, I bet they did.
And it was Billy Crystal. We found it. It was Billy Crystal playing Prince. And it was like, I am also the world. And then you see, not John Belushi, but Jim Belushi is dressed up as Willie Nelson. And
Oh, my God.
somebody else is dressed up as Bob Dylan. They come out. And then Mr. T and Hulk Hogan beat him up and get him out of there. And somebody came, I don't know who it was, came out as Cyndi Lauper. And she's, wow, you know. Like,
What's crazy about that is I don't think we're ever going to have cultural phenomena like that again.
not like that.
Because if you remember, that was the height of the MTV era.
Yes.
And kids today, like McNuggets, doesn't know what MTV started as.
No,
Right.
What it used to be.
Yes.
It
Can
was.
I guess what it used to be?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Music television, MTV. They
Okay,
just
so
played
it did
videos.
start as music videos, though.
That was it.
That's all it was in the beginning.
Now they don't play any music videos.
And by the way, all those DJs from back in the day, or those VJs,
Yeah.
they're now on Sirius on
they
like
are.
the 80s channel.
My wife
and
listens to them every day.
Me too.
She loves them
That's
because she
great.
loves the 80s.
That what's her name? I can't think of the one DJ who's got that really raspy
Yeah,
voice.
and it's even worse
Oh
now.
my God.
Nina Blackwell?
Nina-
Nina
Nina Blackwood.
Nina
Blackwood,
Blackwood.
According to director Steve.
Yeah, she's really like this.
Yes.
It's hard to listen to.
Pat Benatar wasn't in We Are the World either. I liked her.
Oh, she wasn't?
No.
Yeah, she was a pretty big star. She wasn't like, I don't think she was in the stratosphere of some of the others. But
No,
she was a big star.
I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah,
that was
the
fun.
good old days of MTV. And see, now, nobody buys records.
No.
There's no more record stores. Everything's downloaded.
Still got some.
Which I hate. That was such a big part of my youth.
Yeah.
Saving my allowance, racing to the music store at the mall,
Well, how about
Peaches, and picking out that album or that cassette that you've been saving.
How
for
about
forever.
the little later? Once it got to cassettes, you'd send the penny in.
Yes, and you'd get
the
13 or something.
you talking the little ad, right?
But then you had to buy
Right.
6 more over the next 3 years.
Right, something like that.
Right.
Which sucked because you had to pay full price for them.
Yeah, right. They got you.
But in the meantime, you got this huge box of cassettes for a penny.
It was awesome.
Oh my God!
I used to record the videos on MTV
I did too.
on a VCR tape.
You leave a tape in, record, play, pause, and as soon as the song came on, Billie Jean's on.
Yeah.
Hit it. Boom. And you
Well,
would
Michael
record it.
Jackson's videos in particular were just like Thriller.
They were movies.
I mean, that was crazy.
Remember, they would have a world premiere of the Michael Jackson Thriller
Right.
video
It was
or
amazing.
whatever.
What's the equivalent of that today?
Well, there is nothing because the only appointment viewing that exists today is
Sports. That's it.
That's it.
And HBO shows.
Well,
Yeah, I guess there are some, because they still release episodes at
Yeah.
a time. But it's crazy because there used to be, I don't know if you remember this, there used to be Friday night videos.
Oh, yeah.
This was
Yes.
This was if you didn't have cable.
Right.
And a lot of folks didn't. This was the beginning edge of the
I
cable
remember Friday
era.
night videos.
So NBC, I think it was NBC on Friday night
Yes, it
at
was.
11:30.
Yep.
Would just go from 11:30 to 1, and they would play nothing.
It was amazing.
But the popular videos.
Loved it.
And God, their ratings were gargantuan. At 11:30 at night.
I mean, in those days, it was Friday night videos.
Remember
There was
Headbangers Ball?
Headbangers Ball. And then you had Saturday night with Saturday Night Live, which was must watch in those days.
John
70s and
Kirshner's
80s.
rock concert would come on late at night.
And then
too.
Sunday was George Michael's Sports Machine, of course.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to give you a bit of trivia, right? So to bring it full circle. So, MTV came out, they wouldn't play black videos at all.
Not at first. They did not. No.
That's how BET came.
It was Duran.
In the play.
It was all the white pop
I want
groups.
to say said Michael Jackson was the first one they were really starting to play, right?
He broke down the
so
barrier.
BET came into play because there was an avenue for that culture.
Right.
And that's
with
how
the
it
black
came out.
artists that MTV
Right.
wasn't playing.
Wasn't playing.
BET was. God, that was. To Mike's question, I don't think anything will be like that again.
No.
It's so much different now. Everything is so scattered.
Yeah.
And nobody's really broadcasting. Everybody's like narrowcasting. Everything is so niche right now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So would they just do a live broadcast for a 4-minute music video and then just
Yes.
go back
Yeah.
to regular programming?
No, they would build an hour around it. They would
Yeah.
say, welcome to the Michael Jackson world premiere
Right.
video of Billie Jean. Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to tell you how the music video was made, where it was made. And then at like 8:45, they would roll it.
Do you remember when Thriller came out?
Oh my God.
They told you
I don't.
they told you when Thriller was going to be broadcast.
Yeah.
Yes, for a month in advance.
Yes. And
February 3rd,
everybody
the
was
world
in front
premiere
that.
of the Michael Jackson
The
Thriller
hype
video.
for Michael Jackson videos was like the hype for Marvel movies now.
Yeah.
Oh, they spent tens
I
of
mean,
millions of
it's
dollars on
crazy.
these
It was
videos.
crazy.
I love the Beat It video. That was a great one, too. But then, of
Beat
course,
It, Billie Jean, all of the Thriller videos off the album Thriller,
Right, they're
which
amazing.
to me is still the greatest single album
of all
ever.
time. Of all
by
time.
the way,
Ever.
last thing, as I continued down the rabbit hole, and after I watched the Saturday Night Live parody with Billy Crystal, it took me to a couple other Saturday Night Live sketches. And some of the stuff then, obviously, that was the best time of Saturday Night Live, the 70s into the early 80s. And it got good again. Now I don't really watch it. But some of the things they did then, you could never do. I watched this one sketch that had Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor, where they used every racial slur. I mean, every racial slur. Now, it was supposed to be funny. Richard Pryor was part of the thing.
Right.
But you could never do that now.
No.
Never. I was like, oh, my God, I can't believe this was on TV.
That's not happening anymore. That's not.
That's
happening.
why it was what it was. Is it was cutting edge.
That's
Yes.
not happening
Archie
anymore.
Bunker in the 70s, same
Yes.
thing.
Same thing.
Yes.
While it was poking fun at society
Yeah.
and the way and bigots and the way people were then,
Yeah.
it also there was a comedic thread to it. They did make it funny,
Yes.
even if you were offended. it was still funny
Yeah.
the way they did it. It would never pass censors
no,
today,
no. Couldn't do it.
which is odd because what gets on TV today in some areas is far worse than it was things that were on
That's
TV
true.
in the 70s.
Yeah.
But not when it comes to social norms and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
All right, that was a fun rabbit hole. I'm glad you took us down that because I haven't thought about
Those are
that
great
video
memories.
in 20 years.
Last
but-
part of the rabbit hole, we're mentioning comedy, February 8th, Hilarities.
Yes.
Our UCSS comedy show. I will not say every racial slur in the book. I promise
Don't say
you
any.
You're not going
that
to
will
use
not
any.
happen.
We-
I will
we've
not use any.
determined.
No, it'll be a very PG comedy skit.
Are you working on individual bits for
Yeah, I
Bull,
actually-
for G, for Brad, like jokes about all
No,
of
you
us?
know what? I'll give you guys the quick rundown. I think the first 90 seconds, I'm just going to roast everyone on the show.
Good.
And then the last 8 minutes is going to be just jokes. And hopefully one of them lands.
Wow, you're really taking this seriously. You're building a rundown.
Listen, I'm practicing in the shower. Every time I'm in the shower, I run through this routine. I actually think
you better practice on being funny.
I'm looking forward to this.
Listen, I think I'm going to get there's a couple ones that are going to fall flat. I have a feeling that it's
Well,
a
cut
very
those
deep-
out. You got time. Cut them out and replace them.
I'm working. I talked to
Yeah.
my friend Chris yesterday who did
Have
stand
you
up back.
tried
I
this
ran
out
a few
on
jokes
anyone
by
yet?
him. I've not the whole routine, but I've done a couple bits to people. So.
How's it going over?
Well, Jess laughed at all of them, but Jess laughs at everything, so I'm not sure she's a great sounding board.
Okay.
So I needed an easy laugh to start, but it's going good. February 8th, Polk is working on getting that link. I see people in the YouTube chat right now asking us where's the link. As
How
soon
much
as
are
we-
tickets to that
$10
show?
bucks.
$10.
And it's all going to charity. I don't get any money. It's all going
That's
to the Greater
great.
Cleveland Food Bank. We're raising money for charity, but it's for the Greater Cleveland
Okay.
Food Bank.
So,
Fantastic.
so
Okay.
Anthony's
Donate that
opening,
also.
then you, and then Polk.
It's also the Mike Polk Jr. show, so there's a couple other local comedians
Okay.
to buffer the terrible me and Anthony.
Exactly.
into
So it's
the
going to be a
very
great
funny
show,
people.
even beyond you and
Yes.
Anthony, which is going to be funny in a different way. It's going to be a great show, and you get in for $10. I mean, you cannot beat that kind of entertainment. for
And you're
$10.
helping the Greater Cleveland community.
and
so-
and helping people. Yes,
and you get to meet us. Come hang out with us.
Yes, that's the
Yeah, it's kind of going to be a UCSS off-site party,
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna
I
be
mean,
awesome.
That's kind of what it feels like. I mean, there will be alcohol served.
Do you know what the show's called? You don't.
No.
It's actually called the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Comedy Show Fantasy Football Atonement Spectacular.
Polk
Mike had
Polk
to come up
do
with that, yes.
That is so Mike Polk.
That is, Mike Polk wrote the description. I just had to correct
By
a
the
few
way,
grammar issues.
I saw on social media, maybe you guys have seen this. But if you don't know why McNuggets is going to do a 10-minute comedy routine, it's because he finished last in our fantasy football league.
Yeah.
Dead last. So that was the pre-approved
Right.
punishment for the last
Right.
place team. I've seen some really funny ones this year on social media. One of the guys has to do a TikTok dance
saw this.
every day. It is
Every day for how long?
mind-blowingly funny.
30 days.
30 days for an entire month. He has to post himself doing a TikTok dance
Yeah.
every single day, and they are absolutely hilarious.
Oh, my God.
Because the
People
guy
are getting
can't dance.
People are getting more and more creative with their last place prize. I say
They
prizes.
are.
It's not
Yeah.
really a prize.
Punishments.
Movie prize. Yeah.
All right, busy show today. DeQuell Jackson is coming up in a little bit. We're going to do our divisional picks, and we're going to play a game of Would You Rather. Okay? Everybody knows that game,
Sure.
Would You Rather. It's a really, really, as you take a look at our Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show championship trophy, which sits in front of Bull because, as predicted by himself, Bull won the inaugural
I did.
league.
I
Bull
did.
is Mr. Fantasy. There's no doubt about it.
I am a fantasy
You can
nerd.
talk about third-tier tight ends,
Right.
and he's going to name off 6
Yeah,
of them.
there's no question.
Yeah,
He
it's embarrassing,
really,
but that's
really
true.
goes deep with fantasy football. And we're glad he's here because we know a lot of you guys love fantasy football, and his knowledge has been helpful. Would You Rather is going to be fascinating. I wish G was here because I know he was going to be on the opposite
G was
side.
very hot about this one. When I told him about it yesterday, he goes, "Oh, I can't wait to get into this."
Yeah,
one."
that's
And
why I
then-
wish he was here.
Yeah, we may have to. I'll text G and I'll get some of his stats he wants me to throw in here.
But in the meantime, let's start with Jim Schwartz and his coaching style. Brad, you haven't had a chance yet to weigh
Yeah.
in on that. I know originally we were all kind of wishing that it would have gone the other way. Brian Flores he seemed to be our consensus first pick,
Right.
but right behind him at a very close 1A was Jim Schwartz. What do you say
Well,
about the Schwartz hiring?
My thoughts were, I think it was an appropriate and great hire. I think that I didn't think that the options that the Browns had. I didn't think that the way they ended up with Schwartz was probably the best of all options because otherwise they would have had to wait for a period of time here, and the Browns are not in a position to wait for anything, right? We needed a culture change. You know, Joe Woods it was not working here for Joe Woods, right? As nice as a guy as he probably was, it just was not to be. we had to clean house, and it was time to clean house. My question now is, when you bring in a new philosophy with Jim Schwartz and those the no-nonsense guy come to the table, now you got to correct the culture in the clubhouse, right? Everybody got to be on the same, singing from the same hymnal.
Yeah, before you even start thinking about the actual X's and O's on
Right.
the defense.
We got to clear that up. We got to sing from the same hymnal. Everybody's got to be talking about the same thing. Now,
Do you think he's the guy to do that?
well, I think from what I can see and what I read, I think his personality is fitting for that. Now, do I think that everybody's going to buy into the package? Absolutely not, right? And there's a remedy to that. Let me show you the door. That's the remedy.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you're the highest priced dude.
So if it's Myles Garrett that doesn't buy in,
let me tell you something.
you got to go.
I'm going to get a king's ransom back for you. Yes, I will. Because that's how the big boys play it.
Yeah.
Like, we all going to come from the same place at the same time. The bus leaving at one time, we all going to be on it. Now, if you don't want to be on the bus, tell me now, and I will make arrangements.
That takes us to our first question. Bull,
Yeah.
how will Myles take to Schwartz's coaching style, which was probably, if we're going to compare it to anybody that he's played under so far, it would be Greg Williams.
Yeah, I've heard this comparison. I know Earl was concerned about that. I maybe their styles are similar, but I ultimately think Greg Williams and Jim Schwartz are very different people. Yes.
And that Williams was more of a hard ass?
Yeah, I mean, Williams is like a borderline lunatic. Which as a borderline lunatic myself, I don't have a problem with that. But, like, Schwartz is not, like, he's a tough guy, but he doesn't have the same reputation that Greg Williams has.
He's fair tough as far as
I absolutely. And somebody that I was talking to that covers the Browns was saying to me that part of the reason Jim Schwartz got hired is because they over Brian Flores in the end. One, that Brian Flores had some head coaching opportunities, so they couldn't seal a deal with him.
Can't wait.
Right.
But also that they think ultimately Myles Garrett fits best in what Jim Schwartz wants to do, in his style. And so and he's their best player, so they wanted to have a defense that fits his style. So I think Jim Schwartz has shown you consistently in his career that he gets the best out of defensive linemen. It's been a consistent theme in his coaching career. Yeah. So I as all those great players he's had, I would argue that Myles Garrett's better than all of them.
Can I say this? And I was just thinking about when you talk about Schwartz and fitting the Myles Garrett style. What sometimes a coach has to do is challenge players from this standpoint. Not challenge them to produce on the field, but challenge in other ways. I'm gonna challenge Myles Garrett. I'm gonna need you to be the leader here. Something that you haven't done.
We talked about that yesterday.
I said something that you haven't done.
2 days ago.
Something that you haven't done, right? And sometimes you have to dig into people's soul. And they have to go soul searching, like, what do you mean? I am a leader. No, you're not. I'm going to need you to take
Not the leader I need you to be.
I need you to be.
You know Ted Ginn Sr.,
Yeah.
right? We had him in Wednesday, and one of the questions we asked him, and I was fascinated by the answer, was, can you make your best player, who it may not be in his DNA to be a vocal leader, can you make that guy a leader? And he said, absolutely.
Yeah. It was interesting because Kevin Stefanski was on with Ken, Carmen, and Anthony Lyman this morning on The Fan. Unlike them, we will give credit to other entities. And it was actually an interesting interview. He gave a couple of both guys asked some good questions, and he actually gave some answers. He gave a very interesting answer when he was asked about this, about leadership. Mm-hmm. And he admitted, he didn't even say it was a bad thing, but he was like, we have leaders on the team. He's like, everybody wants that one guy that's going to rah-rah and scream and yell and get the whole team. He said not every team has that. Those players are very special. And he didn't say specifically we don't, but I thought the way he answered it made it seem like he doesn't. He brought up Nick Chubb as an example. He goes, hey, Nick speaks when he needs to, but basically he leads by example.
Right.
Now, I think
it's pretty clear. They don't have that.
No, they don't.
I mean, if I'm going to central cast, Ray Lewis is that guy.
Yeah, he's that guy.
So they're on the scale. So, okay, if you have a Ray Lewis who would be a 10 in terms of guys taking a hill with a player and rah-rah, the epitome for me was Ray Lewis. On that scale, you'd have to go down to like maybe a 3 before you find one of those guys on the Browns. And maybe it is Chubb and maybe it is Garrett, but I mean, if we're not seeing it, the sideline cameras aren't capturing it, it's not happening a lot.
I would say that the rah-rah like Ray Lewis, that's a rare type, right?
That is
that's why I said
that level is rare.
He's the bar.
Because you sit out, even when Deion was playing, I don't think you would say Deion was a leader on the team. Deion was a
not like
special
Ray
talent.
Lewis. No.
But, okay, let's take
so
a guy like Drew Brees.
But let me say this.
Yes.
On that spectrum, way on the right
You're
end.
looking for this. You're looking for a general. The general is not always the rah-rah. The general is the person that can get to Bull and say, hey, Bull, come on now. I'm going to need to get something better out of you.
That's right.
And I respect you enough to
Maybe
okay.
like Sheldon Richardson
Right.
was when he was here. He wasn't
Yeah.
the best player, but he kind of was the traffic cop on the team. He kept
That's
guys
it.
in line. He was the guy that pulled Baker aside and said, Bake, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
You don't talk about, one of ours
Right.
like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, Jay. I think ultimately, in the Ravens' case, they were a team built on defense until Ray Lewis led, right? And I agree with you, Brad. It's a unique situation at that level. For most teams, you want that guy to be your quarterback. And
I think it's better if he
Yes,
is.
and-
or your best player.
Yeah.
right.
Like in the Ravens' case, it wouldn't have done any good if Trent Dilfer came running out of the
No.
tunnel, lifting dirt.
He
dancing.
wasn't firing anybody
No.
up.
But when Ray did it, who was clearly not just the best player on that team, but one of the all-time greats, it just electrified everybody.
But I hope that Deshaun Watson can be that guy next year. Now,
It'd be nice.
I
Yeah.
think he had that kind of personality when he was in Houston.
Yeah, so do I.
Really? Because I never saw that. I never saw like.
I always thought
I think people responded to him.
Yes,
I think everywhere
was
he's
was
been.
he a fiery leader? I don't remember that.
I mean, again, if anybody compared to Ray Lewis is not going to seem like a fiery leader. But
Okay, Drew
it is
Brees.
all-
Was he
I
in-
think he was like that, like
was
Drew
he?
Brees.
Okay,
I
good.
looked at him that
Good.
way.
I don't remember it.
And but he hasn't been that way here. Obviously, he played crappy football for the most part for the 6 games he was here. And the one aspect of Deshaun Watson that I kind of ignored when they traded for him is like the mental aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
He did it to himself, at least some of this,
Oh, yeah.
right?
He was there.
Right. And so he's got to find a way. We always laugh when they're like, guys got to go for counseling or whatever. I mean, Deshaun Watson clearly is a guy, no matter what he did and didn't do, that needs counseling.
Yes.
Because he's got mental hurdles to overcome. No matter what percentage of what happened he's to blame for, there's at least a percentage. And whatever percentage it is, he needs to find a way over that because he needs to get that guy back. He needs to have that. Unless he gets that cockiness, that edge that quarterbacks have to have that are good, he's never going to be that
I
player.
want to clarify something just to make
Yeah.
sure that what you said wasn't misunderstood.
Yeah.
You're not saying he needs counseling for everything that happened before he got to Cleveland. Whatever that was, and he and the women
Right.
know.
Yes.
Whatever that was, there probably is a degree that needs cleaned up. But I think the bulk of the work that Deshaun needs to do with a sports psychologist is exactly what you said. How do I get back to having the swagger that
That's
number
right.
4 had in Houston?
That's right.
How do I deal with the awful things I'm going to hear for the rest of my career?
Right.
How do I deal with the media? How do I handle this stuff? Because, Bull, I honestly believe this, and we're going to talk about this later in the show. My biggest concern right now with Deshaun Watson is that he never returns to the guy he was because of what happened to him.
Well, and that's it. Because physically, there should be no reason why
No
he
reason
couldn't.
whatsoever.
It's the mental.
It's
If
the
he
mental.
doesn't get back to that guy, it's going to be because he couldn't get back to that mindset.
Yes.
I'm the freaking man.
Yes,
We talked about
absolutely.
it weeks ago when I was on the show. I said there's a fine line between the good and the great.
Yeah.
And it's your edge. All the greats have an edge to them, right?
How they carry
And
themselves.
so I said, I think our issue was we didn't take that into consideration when we were talking about him coming back.
Because we were blinded by the talent.
right.
Yeah, and
And
that's
so-
fair.
Yeah.
And I think even
that's
Bull
true.
would admit that. I think everybody would admit that.
You got to now.
I ignored that.
The Browns and Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
now have to mirror that together here and be
Yes.
like, hey, hold on now.
Right.
We're gonna need it's like a wrecked car here. We need some body work here, right?
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah.
we've got to see what's inside the body. Did some of that stuff inside get damaged?
Yeah,
here?
did the frame get cracked?
Because you got to put that back together. Because without an edge, I
Yeah.
don't care if it's Deshaun Watson, any other great player, without that edge, it takes a lot away from that player.
Ultimately, back to the starting point,
Yeah.
which was Schwartz and Myles Garrett. No one here thinks that Myles is going to have a problem being coached harder than he was before. Because I don't think
I
it's going
think
to
they
be
were
the
begging
extent
for
that
it.
Greg Williams
I think they were
coached.
begging for it.
But I am concerned about one guy. And before I tell you the name of the guy I'm concerned about, I'll ask you guys. Do you have a player that you're concerned about in terms of how he's going to match up with Schwartz's style?
I mean, I guess JOK would be the guy.
Okay.
I mean, just because he's such a different player. I mean, he's like a typical. Like you have to find a way.
You have to find a position for him.
Right. I don't even know what.
How you use him.
Right. I'm not sure. So that's the guy. Like, I mean, Jim Schwartz defense is all about getting pressure with the front four and having a strong, and to do that, and to have Myles Garrett out wider in this wide 9, right? You have to be stout in the middle. We know they need to add defensive tackles.
Right.
I'm not worried about the guys that are here. They're all young. They're moldable, right? I'm not worried about the guys in the secondary really, because I think they're talented there. I think that was the biggest disappointment of this season, besides Deshaun Watson in the last 6 games, was the play of the secondary overall. It improved as the season went along, but I expected the secondary to be great the whole season, and they were far from it.
I think we all did.
Yeah.
So I think JOK and unlocking his skill set is the thing I'm most concerned about.
Do you have a player that you're concerned about?
No, I probably would agree with JOK, and not from the standpoint of him being able to do the deal, but you have to find a place where he can succeed from, right? I don't think the position the Browns had him in, the slot they had him in, was the most advantageous to his ability.
Yeah.
The thing I'm looking for
We're going to talk to DeQuell about that
Schwartz
in 5
is
minutes.
this. You're empowering the rest to be the best that they can be. Delpit, Johnson, Myles, Taki, Emerson, Ward, Newsome, right? We think we have good players, okay? Put them in a position to succeed.
Yeah,
stop
find what they do
stop
best
talking about what they can't do.
Right.
What do you do well?
Right.
And let me put you in a position to do that.
I have a concern. It's not a major concern, but it's just I don't even know how to properly say this because it's going to sound like, that I'm overstating this. The one guy that I am a little concerned about, though, is Denzel Ward, and that's because Denzel was probably the most vocal supporter of Joe Woods. I mean, he had come out during the season and said, guys, he's not the problem. Okay? He's not the problem. So I start wondering, okay, who is going to be most upset about his absence?
Yeah,
And
maybe.
it seemed like Ward was his biggest ally. I don't
That's
know.
fair.
Maybe that was just a public face he was putting on to show unity.
Probably like Joe
He
Ward.
probably did.
Probably like Joe Ward.
But that doesn't mean he's going to dislike Schwartz.
No,
not at
it's
all.
not Schwartz's fault that Joe Woods got fired. And ultimately, I think Denzel Ward is going to love the fact that Jim Schwartz plays a lot more man defense
Yes,
than Joe Woods
Well, it
did.
spotlights his talents.
Absolutely.
A lot more.
let me-
And to your point, so take your 11 guys, whoever they end up being, and we know who probably 8 or 9 of them are.
Sure.
When you look at these guys, what are their strengths? And just build a defense that plays to each one of their strengths. Now, the hard thing is it's like solving a Rubik's Cube. You might get one side, but you got to get all 6 at the same time. So the hard part, and I believe Schwartz is the guy for this, is finding that defense where all the sides match up at the same time. So you're putting Myles Garrett in his strength. If that's wide 9, it's wide 9.
Yeah.
Okay, so if Denzel is man, you got to play him in man.
Yeah.
So you got to get all these pieces to line up together at the same time.
Which is not always easy,
It's
of
not,
course.
and that may take time. That may take 4, 5, 6 games. I think it's very important for everyone to understand. Don't judge this offense or this defense rather in week 6.
I'm gonna say this.
It's going to take time.
I'm gonna say this to you though. Sometimes it's not just that. It's this. I gotta challenge you to be the best that you can be. Right. You're supposed to be this big money grip player. Right. You're going to live up to that.
Yeah, show me.
I'm going to put you out here, right?
Yeah.
And most people are going to respond to that. Denzel Ward is a Buckeye, right? All we do is win. That's all we know, right? And we are challenged at all points, at all times. What you have to do is you have to respond, right? So now we're going to make you respond, right? I'm not going to hide you here. You got Tyreek Hill as you on the island.
Yeah.
I hope good luck to you, right? Because most people are going to try to rise up here and be like, I'm not the one.
Yeah.
I'm not the weak link here. I'm not the one.
Yeah.
And I think that all the players that you talk about, Delpit, right? So when Delpit was at LSU, I love Delpit down at LSU,
He
right?
finally showed, I thought he
At the end of
finally
the year,
showed some improvement at the end of
so
the
I
year.
said, okay, let's go. I'm going to give you some authority and complexity.
Empower him to be great.
Come on now.
Yeah.
This is what you want to be.
Last thing before we bring in DeQuell to follow up on your point, Jay, about, hey, don't judge this defense week 1, new coordinator. Unlike this year, you're also going to have a lot of new starters. I mean,
Well, we have a lot. I think we probably will have 3 or 4 at the most.
that's a lot, though.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I
That's
mean,
almost half.
There's a chance you could have it's possible in a perfect world. They have 5 new starters in the front 7.
Yeah, you could have two new linebackers
right.
and
3 new defensive
and
linemen.
3 new defensive linemen.
You got to have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
Well,
some of them might have been here last year,
But they weren't-
possibly.
Nah,
weren't
I don't
starters.
think that they're here.
No,
I think you'll be bringing some people in
you
here.
need at least 3 starters that are not on
Because
this
the one
roster.
thing we
from
can,
the defensive
one,
line, on the defensive
one
line
thing,
almost by itself.
The one thing we cannot do is be run on again like we were run on this year.
No,
We cannot.
those days are gone.
That gotta
By
be
the way,
stopped.
you mentioned Denzel Ward. I would love to, in the offseason, McNuggets, I hope they would comply with this request. I would love to reach out to the Browns to see if we could get Denzel Ward to come in for a show. I'd love to have him in studio for a full 2 hours.
Yeah, I think we go through Tyvis, not the Browns.
We go, yeah.
Well, I know, but the Browns do have to be
Right.
The Browns have to be in that mix. We respect that. We totally understand that. Teams want to know when their players are talking. They like to approve it.
Right.
And I would like to go through the proper channels. But you're right. Denzel could help. Or, Tyvis could help a lot. But I think it would be great not to grill him, not to put him under, this, interrogation.
Be clear.
Interrogation.
Be clear. If we're going to the top, we need Denzel Ward at
We
his
do.
top
And
of
I
his
would
game.
love to have him sit here, if for no other reason, you touched on it. Talk about the culture, because he's seen both ends of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been at Ohio State where he lost more games in one season.
Right.
I think maybe
One
every
month of the
every
season.
season of the last three, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe every season of his career, he lost more games in each season than he did in total at Ohio State.
That's right.
Right.
Because one thing
And I
Ohio,
would love to have him talk about that
the
culture.
one thing Ohio State has is they have, whether you like them or not, they got culture.
They do have it.
And it passes on from year to year.
And when you walk in
And
that
when you
door
walk
at
in
the
that
Woody Hayes
door, you
facility,
assume that culture, or you're going to be run out of town here.
And culture goes both ways.
Yeah.
When you walk into that Woody Hayes facility, you understand there is an expectation for you, for every guy, not just the starters. Likewise, when you walk into a building in Berea, like the Browns, where winning has not been part of the culture, you automatically know this is an organization that has dealt with ineptitude
Right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
less than their best for the last 20-plus years.
And that's a perfect time to bring in DeQuell.
Wait, he needs to do a read first.
go
Oh,
ahead,
yeah, we're
Mike,
going to bring
sorry.
in DeQuell for a little Browns talk. And for the last time, our Browns talk. Let's
This
give a
is
clap
it.
up for Tri-C.
Yeah,
Today's the last day
baby.
Tri-C's with us.
They've been a great sponsor.
We are Tri-C. We are the students.
Cuyahoga, your choice. It's still community college, the best in the area. Tri-C supports their students financially, professionally, and personally, opening up doors to endless possibilities. Tri-C is where the future starts. It starts now. Classes begin already. They've already begun, excuse me. Today's the last day to register. I heard a rumor that if DeQuell didn't go to Maryland and he decided to go the community college route, Tri-C is probably where he would have ended up. And that is a compliment to Quell,
Maybe.
because Tri-C, you and Ben Wallace could have ran Tri-C together, for real. So
You think so, huh? So have we solved the problem with Cuyahoga? Have we figured that out?
Not
What's
really.
the problem?
No.
Not
What
yet.
did you say when you were here?
Okay.
Yeah, how
I
did you
said
pronounce it?
Cuyahoga.
Yeah, that's
Cuyahoga.
it. That's it right there.
Brad's a lifer.
That's it right there.
Brad
That's it
says
right there.
Cuyahoga. I say Cuyahoga.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it right there. Well,
I
you
get
right
people
on.
when I'm just walking down the street now just look at me and go,
This ain't,
Cuyahoga.
this not Prince George's County.
Hey, DeQuell, I'm
at all.
curious.
It's not PG.
I like those
No,
floating
not
shelves, by the
PG.
way.
Yeah,
DeQuell.
that's nice.
I like those floating shelves. Did you install those yourself?
No, I'm actually in a hotel, if you believe it or not. I'm down in Miami right now.
Oh,
Nice.
I'm
lucky
traveling.
you, brother.
Yeah, traveling with the wife. She had some board meetings, so I'm like, all right, we'll
There you
we'll
go.
tag along.
Moral
Nice.
support.
Nice.
Hey, DeQuell, I'm
Absolutely.
curious because Jay just mentioned that, like, the Browns, Browns have a losing culture here. We know that. They haven't, like the Steelers, as much as I thought they'd be under 500 this year, and I was wrong, like, part of the reason they're able to at least get to mediocrity is because of their culture. They should have been under 500, but they find a way to at least be decent every year. So I'm curious, when you were here, and you're losing year after year, for guys like you that spent a lot of time here, I think I asked the same question to Joe Thomas years ago. Not that you accept losing, but does there ever become a point where you have to not be bothered, I guess, as much by the losing, because you're doing all you can, but you'll drive yourself crazy if you get depressed about every loss? I mean, how does that work for you?
Yeah, and that was something that I had to learn to deal with, because when you're here for only 2 or 3 years, it really doesn't affect you as
Right.
much as, my time here. I spent 8 years there, and Joe Thomas spent his entire career there. The lifers, the Joe Haytons of the world who've been there for so many years, it's an urge that you have to fight, man. And it's so tough and it's so difficult to deal with from a mentality standpoint. In terms of the locker room, I think that's why front office guys invested in guys like myself and Joe Thomas and Joe Hayton, guys who loved Cleveland, being in Cleveland. And despite what the record was each year, you had the same mentality every year. Every year you thought you could win a Super Bowl. Every year you thought you could win. No matter, despite what the record was, you still a pro. You learn how to become a pro very early in your career, and I think it permeated throughout the locker room in my time there. Where the Browns are right now, I don't think we all make this fuss about Myles Garrett being the guy. He's not that guy. Can you develop him to be that guy and galvanize all the guys? I don't know. We'll see. You know, he has the rest of his career to prove to us that he can be that type of leader. But I think that is the issue is, you know, you have to get guys to buy in. You have to be able to identify those guys that you can rely on, obviously when things are going well, but when things are going bad, which guys are going to, you know, tighten that rope and say, you know what, I'm going to pull guys along to get over this hump.
From what you've heard about Schwartz, and I know you were on with this last week before the hire was made, and you said he's a no-nonsense guy. He's a guy that's known for getting the most out of his players. I'm sure you know guys that played for him. I'm sure you've talked to guys that played for him. Give us your reaction to Jim Schwartz being hired, and what impact do you think him being here is going to have ultimately on this defense?
Yeah, I think in terms of talent on this defense, it's a no-brainer. We have the talent. We were missing someone that can get the best out of our talent. And I think Jim Schwartz, am I saying his name right? Is it Schwartz or Schwartz?
Yeah, you got it. Schwartz.
I think his attitude and his demeanor, where he comes from, I listened to his presser. I think he said all the right things. If as a player on this defense, if you're not all in, you're not gonna vibe well with Jim, because he demands from Myles Garrett to the last guy on the roster. He demands a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of success, because he's had it. Everywhere he's been, he's had guys that have basically prolonged his career by playing well. He gets it. And I think he'll be able to come in and sell the points like, listen, guys, we can get everything we want. We can hit all the goals we want individually, money, the whole thing. He'll break it down to those guys and say, you know what? But if we don't have team success, we don't reach any of our goals. And I think you got to, the great coaches, the secret sauce is the personality trait. Is how do I convince these guys early on, I'm the guy for the job? How do I, and when you start to humanize yourself, you don't go in, and I think he'll go in and be just a guy. And I think all the guys will respect it. He's got the respect, he's got the credentials, he's got the credibility, he's got all these things. And I think his personality trait will bode well with the top end guys and the low end guys on this roster.
DeQuell, question for you. How long does that typically, basketball is different. Football, tell me, how long does that typically take with a new coach taking over the type of situation he's walking into? How long before he has an impact on the personality of this defensive squad? And does that occur during the summer? You start seeing the trend turn? When does it start to happen?
It's got to happen now. He's got to be on the phone with all of his guys, building a rapport right now and saying all the right things. With my experience, anytime we had a new position coach or a new defensive coordinator coming to town, I was the guy making the call, because I wanted to be one of the first voices they heard, so he can rely on me. Hey, what's your message? So I can tell other guys, okay, I think I like this guy. But I think on his end, he's got to make those calls now.
Right.
It's something that it never stops and it never ends, and you can't start early enough, in my opinion.
DeQuell, Jim Schwartz plays a lot more man-to-man than he does zone, at least traditionally. I mean, I guess we don't know for sure it's going to happen here. It seems to me that Denzel Ward would thrive more as a man-to-man, being a man-to-man more often. Do you see it that way? I mean, you know better than I. Is that right, or not necessarily the case?
Yeah, corners, they're crazy, man, and they love playing man, you know, because it makes their job easy. You don't have to rely on anyone else to communicate. If a guy is crossing and you got to drop him and give him to the next defender, corners love playing man. But the only issue is if you don't have an offense that isn't generating a lot of points, that means you're putting yourself in harm's way a lot more often
all the time
than what you have to. So it's a give and take situation. And I think with Denzel, I think he works best in man. But Jim, in my opinion, I think one of the reasons they brought him in, because he can identify those players at each level that can help this team. And he talked about in his presser, if you can generate pressure with your front four and you can dictate to the offense when you want to pressure as opposed to the other way around, it's going to help guys like Denzel Ward, Delpit, and a lot of other guys in this locker room. But I think in terms of Denzel, listen, he's a guy that you can win with. You can take this defense to the next level. But like every other player, you need help, and you need the right coaches in place. Oh, I'll say this one other thing, and I know I'm skipping around a bit, but during the presser, Jim said something that I thought was very intriguing, and I think it was an indictment on Joe Woods. He talked about coordinators being able to not only coach the players, but coach the coaches. And I went down my Rolodex in terms of some of the coaches I played for, like Rob Ryan, for instance, when he was in Cleveland. Everyone thinks the world of Rob Ryan. Love him to death as a coach. But it was so disjointed. In his meetings, he would say one thing, and then in the position room, they were saying something else. So it was a lot of disjointed communication going on, which obviously spills over to the field. And I think that had a lot to do with he was speaking in terms of why he got hired, and I took it as some of the things that Joe Woods wasn't able to accomplish, and that's why he was no longer here with this football.
That's a great point. You don't really think about that as a non-player, but the fact that you had a DC telling you one thing and a position coach telling you the other, that's a disaster.
It's a disaster.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I know you, and I felt the same way. We were all high on JOK because his rookie year, he showed a lot of promise. And then
I can't wait to talk about this.
Right. So he went downhill year 2. Jim Schwartz, there's obviously a skill set there, but it's tricky because he doesn't look like a linebacker, or at least a traditional linebacker. So if you were the coach of the Browns, what would you do? You have to find something that JOK could do that he could do well. So how would you use him, and how hard is it to figure that out?
Yeah, that's something they have to – if I were that coach and what I watched on film, he's not a linebacker. He's definitely not he doesn't have the fundamentals to play linebacker. It's just not – and the places he was put in on he was playing Sam at one position, and I don't think he's got the skill set. He's got the athletic ability, but he doesn't have the discipline to play linebacker right now.
So
I would look at playing him on third downs, bring him in to guard tight ends, let him be the man-to-man, the cover linebacker with the title linebacker. Because I just don't think – I think from that position, you got to look at some of these free agents that are out here and bring a guy in that when a coach says these are the things we need to do to be successful, you actually have a guy leading by example doing those things. I think when you look at this group, when you look at JOK, he doesn't play well with his hands. He gets lost in space. He plays too hesitant. And that's one of the things that Jim talked about on his presser. It's like you want guys to play fast. And when you play fast, that means you're prepared, you're comfortable with your fundamentals, everything leading up to the diagnosis of a play. And I don't think JOK has that right now.
Can he become DeQuell, so just given his skill set, his size and his skill set, okay, so there are holes in his technique. That can be coached away, I would think. Can he become a linebacker? Or because if he's not a linebacker, you can't
coach the instincts.
No, you can't, and that's a linebacker is an instinct position. My question is, then, is he even worth keeping around? I mean, just to have him on third down as almost like a sixth defensive back to just cover tight ends. The question then becomes, do you keep him and try to reclaim him into a linebacker, or do you just cut bait and move on?
Yeah, great point, Jay. I get rid of him, in my opinion. I get rid of him because he's a high draft pick. You're going to continue to go down this roller coaster of – because year 1 and year 2 is very critical in the league. And that's the position I see it. And I watch every game, the JOK, every footwork, every step. The great linebackers, the linebackers you couldn't see any growth throughout the season. To me, that means from year 1 to year 2, that means if that's not happening in 2 years, you need to move on.
And
you need to find someone else.
DQ, tell him this. You're not being mean. You're not being mean at all.
Yeah.
You calling a spade a spade,
Love it.
right? This is what it is, right? Either you do or you don't. And if you don't, it's nothing personal against you. We have to move on here because we coming from last place in this division, right? When the expectations were much higher, right? So you have to start saying, okay, how do I win here? And my question to you, DQ, is this. Is Schwartz the guy that goes back to the management now? The head coach said, listen, I need this player, this player, this player.
And I don't need this
and
player.
I don't need this guy.
Right. Yeah. Because he does not fit the bill of Jim Schwartz attitude style defense. Listen, there's a guy I've reached out to early. He hasn't gotten back to me. Stephen Tulloch. Steve Tulloch played at NC State. He played under Schwartz in Tennessee. He's probably, with shoes on, 5'8". But he was a nasty, instinctual, tough, physical, fast linebacker. That's the DNA of what Jim stands. That's what he wants from his interior linebackers. JOK doesn't have that. And I think part of the reason he was brought in because he can identify with his experience at every level. These are the type of guys I need with this type of attitude. And JOK doesn't fit that bill. He doesn't fit that bill at all.
DeQuell, based on how you're defining that, it makes sense. Do they have any linebackers on this roster that fill that bill?
Listen, to be honest with you, no. If you ask me who are the two starters going into next year, man, you need to go on the street and find some guys. I went and looked up top free agents. Levante David possibly could be a top free agent. Get a guy in like that has experience. He could be a massive upgrade to an unaccomplished and inexperienced linebacker group. So you need a guy like that. And I think Jim, with his experience, with his history of coaching, being a defensive coordinator and being around defenses, hopefully he will have that freedom to say, you know what, I don't need this guy. I need a guy like this, and go out in free agency just to plug in one guy. But, time is of the essence. You don't have time to build for 3 or 4 years this defense. So you got to go out and bring in guys who can get the job done and can play really good style defense.
I'm kind of depressed.
Probably.
So why are you depressed?
Because we also know that we need a complete overhaul of the defensive line with the exception of one guy.
Here, I like this. I'm not depressed. I want somebody to tell me what it is.
I know, but
I can't.
If they're not afraid to cut bait with JOK, that's a positive for the organization. If DeQuell's right, and he would know better than all of us, and Jim Schwartz is like, this guy doesn't fit what I'm doing.
Jim's probably seeing the same thing he's seeing.
If they don't force Jim Schwartz to keep him, I think that's a good thing. Now, JOK probably has some trade value, not a ton, but some, because there's probably, DeQuell, some teams, right, that play defense differently, different style, that could use him, and maybe you use that to get draft capital or something else.
Right. As a backup, he's great because you're not giving him the full menu. You're giving him an appetizer of a defensive scheme. And you can rely on that, which as a backup, okay, but he hasn't shown enough for me to say, you know what, he's part of, we can win a championship and a Super Bowl with this guy.
Yeah, he's part of the future rebuild.
He's part of the future rebuild. And I don't think right now that's not what this team needs. You need someone that at best, he's a guy, he's going to be a special teams guy. If things doesn't change drastically, he's going to be a special teams guy and a backup guy.
DeQuell, tell him this. How is it when you line it up next to a guy that you know is inferior for the job, right? Tell him the pressure that puts on me, right? Because I know you can't do what needs to be done, right? And so now I got to cover up not only my stuff, but I got to also help you because you can't do it.
Well, so, Anthony Walker, I feel like that's why he was brought in as a mentor for a guy like JOK that was all over the place fundamentally and instinctually and all these other things. And when they lost him, JOK just kind of was in this puddle. He didn't have anyone to kind of lean on to. Hey, this is how we play the position. This is how. Do I think it's salvageable? It could be. We hope so, but not for the Browns. I think where the Browns are in this staff, you got to move on. You got to bring somebody in that can get it, that you can rely on.
I got another linebacker. I don't know how much you've seen of him, JOK, or you've seen plenty of JOK, but compared to JOK, but I watch him a lot because he's on the Bengals. The Bengals have two really good linebackers, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. And Pratt in particular has really stepped forward this year, had a big year. He's a free agent. Now, I don't know that the Bengals are going to keep him. I think they should, but you never know with them. They have their own game plan. That's a guy who's played in this division. I don't know how much you've seen of him, DeQuell. You mentioned Levante David, who's awesome and has Super Bowl experience, but so does Pratt, and he's younger.
Right.
What do you think of him? Is he a guy the Browns should target?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't seen much of him. I've just watched, big time game or the primetime games. Yeah. I don't know much about him, but listen, those guys. I know that defense has played pretty well. I know that back end is really good. I can't give you anything on him per se. I haven't watched much of him. But there's another guy that comes to mind. In terms of where Schwartz has come from. He mentioned it during his press. David Long. David Long, the undersized guy, don't be surprised if you start plucking guys from over, from Tennessee to come over.
Absolutely.
And understand the system, guys that he's been around, understands their temperament, understands their attitude. I think that's what this defense needs. This defense needs some attitude, man. They do it all the time.
Out of retirement to Quell to play in this defense?
We kind of need you
the
to
right
Quell.
fit for Jim Schwartz, middle linebacker?
Listen, with this bum ankle I have, I won't be much of anything, man. But nah, I can't do it. But the way these guys get paid,
I can think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's enticing. It's very enticing.
How you played, though, would you have fit into a Jim Schwartz defense? Just hypothetically.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would have loved to play for a coach like that. That wasn't afraid to, again, I go back to his presser. He talked about holding guys accountable when his number one guy, I think it was Malcolm Jenkins, he had a mental error during the game, and the next meeting, he pulled him to a side. And this is what great coaches do. Your top guys who rarely make mistakes, and when they make a catastrophic mistake, it's very important that the coach brings it up in the meeting. So it permeates to everyone else that, you know what, I'm holding him accountable. Yeah. So your behind better be accountable.
Exactly.
And he talked about him holding his feet to the fire. I love coaches like that because I know if you can't play, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're not going to play. And the coach has that type of he's been, this will be his 30th year. So he's not on the front end of his coaching career where he needs his job. So he's going to try to, not be who he is. No, this guy is comfortable in his own skin. He's a man's man. He's a coach's coach. And I would have loved to play for him.
By the way, DeQuell, another free. I know I'm kidding myself because I know this guy's.
Let's do it.
I know this guy's going to get franchise tagged, but I'm sure you've seen a lot of him because he plays for the Commanders. Deron Payne.
Oh, Deron Payne.
Oh, yeah. If the Browns could get him, I mean, I know they can't let him go.
The problem is social media is all abuzz about let's bring Payne in. People are tweeting at him, come to Cleveland. That's not.
He's not. But how good is he? I mean, it seems like he's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's one of those rare breeds that can generate pressure from the interior of your defensive line. That's something the Browns desperately needs, because when you have a guy that can generate 16 sacks on one end, and if you can generate any pressure, take the double team away from him, and have it only helps your defense generate pressure. And that's the number one. Listen, if you can generate pressure in this league, you guys know you're gonna win a ton of games in this league. And Deron Payne will be a huge upgrade, massive upgrade. But again, it's wishful thinking.
DeQuell, have you ever made a player cry on the field? Did you ever hit somebody so hard they actually cried on the field?
No, I have not. And I have not. I don't. No, I haven't. I wish I could tell it.
Yeah.
Listen, I would love to tell you. I would love to tell you I made somebody cry.
Who is the player? Who's the player? I mean, you had like 7,000 tackles in your career. Who's the player that hit you? That was the hardest to tackle. The biggest badass to tackle.
So I got him in his prime, and I ended up making. I think I talked to you guys about this a long time ago. And McNuggets found the damn Sports Illustrated. I was on the
we have
cover
the cover.
Of.
We have it.
Adrian Peterson. Peterson in his prime. That's the obvious, but under the radar that really no one really talked about. There's two guys: Ronnie Brown, when they started running the Wildcat in Miami when he was there, and then Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson was the quickest. Yeah. Oh my God! Yeah. Once you got your hands on him, he went down. But he was so hard to just get to, because he was quick, fast, and he just would hide behind his offensive line. So he was always tough for me. Always.
He had some great years, Johnson.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You never played? Did you ever play against? I can't remember the timeline for his career, but did you ever play against Brandon Jacobs?
So I did, but you know what? The thing with Brandon, he was just big, but he wasn't that. He was easy to bring down. Guys on the back end were afraid to hit him because he's so big, and when he puts those shoulder pads over his knees, you're gonna go backwards. You're gonna go where he's going.
What about Mike Allstott? Did you ever play against Allstott?
See, now you're trying to age me. No, hell no. I was in high school when Allstott.
I know, because I know you would know of Mike Allstott. But even after they won the Super Bowl, you stuck around in the league for a few years, and I couldn't remember what your rookie year was. But I saw him at field level hit some cornerbacks in open space where I felt it. I mean, my body cringed at those collisions.
Speaking of fullbacks, Lorenzo Neal.
Oh, man.
Lorenzo Neal with LaDainian Tomlinson, when they were running through every defense known to man. Oh, my God, he hit me so hard. I think I may have cried. He hit me so damn hard. Oh, my goodness.
McNuggets has a bunch of rapid-fire questions for you.
Couple rapid-fire ones. First off, how was the Hall of Fame induction last week?
Oh, it was pretty cool, man. It was good to go back to the high school. It was done on a much lower level than college and going through the Legends program with the Browns. But it was cool. It was good to see. So funny story. So a woman, one of my best friends in high school, I actually used to live with. His parents let me live with him for like the last 2 years of high school because my grandparents had all the grandkids. And long story short, I always knew she played softball, and I hadn't talked to her. Her name is Patty Sidlow. I talk to her every now and again, but come to find out, she was in the same building being recognized for a 1979, the only state championship soccer or softball team in Seminole high school history. So it was good to reconnect with her, and my old coach was there. He got inducted as well. See his family, and my biggest supporter, King, he's running around here with his Beyblades. He was there with me, and so that was the best part of it, just to see him run around and, anywhere I was getting, acknowledged, he was right there with me. So it was fun, man. It was good to go back home and, see the beach. But it was cold. It was cold, man. It was cold in Florida. It was like 55 degrees.
Hey, we got no sympathy for you on 55 degrees.
Oh, yeah, 56 last night.
That's true.
Your son is a fan favorite in the YouTube chat. People keep asking what's that noise in the background.
We love it.
Oh, shit. You know what? I was trying to mute. When he's got
it's all good.
The Beyblades kids love those things.
DeQuell, my last question. We don't have G. Bush here, so between Jay, Brad, Bull, and myself, us four, what position would each of us play in the NFL if we were able to make it that far? After hearing your JOK evaluation, I know you'd be able to place us in a proper spot on a football field.
This will be fun.
Okay, so Brad is going to be I already know, Brad, you're going to be my Calvin Johnson. You're going to be my goal line.
Just throw it to me.
Just toss it up.
I also want him on special teams so he can block kicks.
That's true.
I'm going to come on right over DeQuell's back.
and we're not going to use your knees now. We're going to use your 19-year-old knees.
Yeah, right.
We're going to since Jay brought up a fullback and Mike Allstott, Bull, you're going to be my fullback. You're going to be my Mike Allstott.
I was thinking
Lorenzo
guard, but I'd love to play fullback.
You know what? I want to give you a little glory. I want to give you a little glory.
I want the glory.
Yeah. Jay, you're going to be my quarterback because I think you kind of tie everything together. Yeah. You're my quarterback. You're going to get everybody lined up, bring everybody back down when they're going crazy and we can't move the ball down the field. Yeah, I can see you orchestrating that.
And once upon a time, I could chuck a football 60 yards. So.
McNuggets the kicker. Is McNuggets the kicker?
No, McNuggets is the water boy. Are you kidding me? He's bringing me the water.
I know you got a bum ankle right now, but I was on fire last night.
Bring me
You gotta get down here.
Bring me some Gatorade, McNuggets.
I need some Gatorade. Get this crap out of here.
But
I thought for sure he was going to go kicker.
No,
he's the water boy.
We got the divisional round of the playoffs, and it's my favorite weekend of football because you get two really good games on each day.
Yes.
Let's start in the NFC. Make your picks in the NFC. We'll start out on the coast. We'll start with the 49ers and Cowboys. Who do you like?
Man, it's been a year of the backup quarterback this year, and Purdy has done such a great job with this team, and everyone's rallying behind him, and everyone loves the underdog story. But you know what? I want to see something different. Last week I wanted to see the Bucks actually beat the Dallas Cowboys, but this year I'm going with the Cowboys. This week I'm going with the Cowboys. I want to see them
what about in the other game?
Yeah.
You got the Giants and the Eagles, an NFC East old school clash.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles. I'm still on this Jalen Hurts bandwagon. I want to see him really, take his game to the next level, and you make your legacy known in the playoffs. So I'm going to Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts.
All right, that'd be an interesting Dallas-Philly NFC East
it would be.
championship
would
game.
love it.
I mean, this has been the year of you said it, backup quarterback, but also the NFC East is shining this
After
year.
a terrible year last.
Yes.
Awful. Okay,
Yes.
what about in the AFC?
Yes.
You got 2 games over there. You got the Jags at the Chiefs and the Bengals at the Bills. Who do you like in those 2?
I like Bengals. I like Bengals over Buffalo. I really do.
Okay.
I really do. And the Jacksonville game, are you kidding me? I'm going Chiefs. I'm not going against Patrick Mahomes. I think Jacksonville. Listen. I think they played very. King is talking to me. I think they played very well. They had a great comeback story, but I think it runs dry against the Chiefs. We haven't heard much about them in the last.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
He's in the mix. He's in the mix.
Man, listen.
He's climbing down.
There he is, baby.
He's trying to go to the pool. He wants to go to the pool.
Go to the pool. Have fun.
Hey, I need you for
Give us a
60
second.
seconds before we let you go. We're going to play Would You Rather after we let you go. And here's the question.
Okay.
Would you rather, for the next 4 years, taking everything into consideration, salary, past experience, baggage, everything, I'm giving you a choice. Deshaun Watson at his salary, Brock Purdy at his.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. I know what you guys are doing. That's funny, but I gotta go with Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry.
Very good.
I gotta go with Deshaun. Watson. That's funny. Purdy,
good, right?
I like it this year, but no, not for over 4 years. Absolutely
I
not.
will say that is the absolute, to quote G. Bush, Duke of knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Of course, what are you kidding? It's
To
but
pick Brock Purdy.
I was asked as a service to this show to take the other side. So, like any good defense attorney who thinks his client is guilty, I dug into the numbers and I'm going to present the case for why you're wrong and why these guys are wrong right after we let you go.
Thanks,
hey,
DeQuell.
have a
Have
great
fun at the
weekend.
pool.
Always good.
Hey, good to see you guys.
All right, DQ.
I'll send some room
Take
service
care.
with a bottle of water up. Don't worry, DeQuell.
And a bag of
I
popcorn.
appreciate it.
From the water boy.
All right, water
that was
boy.
great.
I'll see you guys.
We love DeQuell.
Nice to cue.
His appearances are always gold. All right, so that takes us to the Would You Rather. And I'll set it up a little differently for you guys. I'll use some numbers to do that.
Okay.
Oddly enough, we have a 6-game body of work for both this year. So you can, if you want to factor in Watson's past, you can do that. But this year, Watson in 6 games, 7 touchdowns, 5 picks, 1,100 yards, record 3-3. Purdy, 13 touchdowns, so almost double. 4 interceptions, so, considering the number of passes he's thrown, it's still fewer pass interceptions per attempt. He's got 1,374 yards, and his team in games he has started is 7-0. His playoff line, I don't know if you built the graphic for this, but his playoff line, we'll throw that in there too because that is what he's done this year, and that's the question. Looking at what they've done this year.
It's coming.
In one playoff game this year,
Yeah.
he had 3 touchdowns. He threw for 332 yards and a quarterback rating of 131, a rating of 131.5,
You know
a QBR of 89.5.
You know what's interesting about this question? Kudos to Mikey McNuggets. It's one of the 5 dumbest questions I've ever seen in the history of sports radio. Because only an idiot would take Brock Purdy over Deshaun Watson.
I take that personally.
Any Tom, Dick, and Harry could be good for a few games in the NFL, especially with an elite coach. And
Wait, we have an elite offensive coach, don't we?
we don't.
Oh, I thought we did.
We have a good coach,
Okay.
I think. But
I
it's
thought
unproven.
offensively we still kind of looked at Kevin
Kyle
as
Shanahan.
an elite
Not to
based on what he
mention-
did with backup quarterbacks.
Not to mention,
I didn't say
Thank
that.
you, Jay.
not to mention that that the 49ers probably have, if not the best roster, not including quarterback, certainly top 4.
Well, it's
right?
funny you say that because in
Yeah.
the beginning of the season when we did a whole segment where we
Right.
compared the Browns and the Niners.
Yeah.
And you said that the Browns had the
And
better
you know
roster.
what was interesting about that? That I, along with the rest of you, embarrassed ourselves by saying that.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, they added Christian McCaffrey during the season.
Which we didn't know
is a
as
massive
part of our
addition. We didn't know at that
the
time.
one thing that we said that the Browns had a huge advantage
Right.
on was running back.
Right, which is
that no
obviously-
longer exists.
That's not the case.
But tight
So-
ends, we got a top 3 paid
No.
tight end. They have a top 3
No,
paid
but George
tight end.
Kittle's a million times better than Njoku.
We know that.
Okay,
but
they got
they're
better
paid around the same
receivers.
amount of money.
They got everything about plus their defense is obviously a million times better than our defense is.
That's the way it played out.
Right.
But when we were just looking at names and
Right,
Yeah,
but
well, I'm
we
not-
were biased. We know the Browns better than we know the Niners. The bottom line is, Brock Purdy was a 7th-round pick for a reason, and we could.
he was Mr. Irrelevant, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. We could bring up Tom Brady as
Pick 199.
people missed.
Yeah.
But that's a rarity, right? Almost every good quarterback in the league is a 1st or 2nd-round pick.
Usually,
There's
yeah.
very few. The only good starters that were not that high are Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, who was, I think, a 4th-round pick, and Dak Prescott, right? Aren't those
in the
only
league now.
Right.
Okay. Well,
But
Kurt
if you
Warner,
look-
it happens though.
if you-
I mean, Kurt Warner was in
Of
the
course
Arena
it
League.
happens,
And-
but
and
it's a rarity.
Maybe
It's a rarity.
because it hasn't happened in a while. Maybe
Right.
this is the next
And
one.
it might be, right? Maybe Brock Purdy turns out. But the odds are that this is a small sample size in a perfect situation with a perfect coach.
Right.
And that Deshaun Watson, who's never been in a perfect situation,
Right.
has Brock Purdy outplayed Deshaun Watson these last 6 games? Of course he has. There's
No
the
question.
numbers are pointless. He's obviously played better. He's on a better team. He hasn't been sitting for 2 years, and he just flat out played better. But going forward, there's no team in the league, unless you're just morally opposed to having Deshaun Watson,
Yeah. Take that part of it out.
there's no team in the league that would take Brock Purdy over Deshaun Watson.
So here's the funny thing about this. Like, we don't know yet. This is a to be determined. That's why it's
Yeah.
not the dumbest question ever, because we don't know.
Yeah.
We saw a
If
dumber
well,
question.
Somebody, this question was asked not just in New England, but all over the United States of America after Brady led the Patriots to their Super Bowl, and they were still sitting on the guy that they thought was their future quarterback. Remember, they thought that even though Brady had played well, the question moving forward was, what about Drew Bledsoe? And they asked this question everywhere. I remember it. I was in the media at the
Yeah.
time. And everybody was like, are you kidding me? You go back to Drew Bledsoe.
So
And that was all-time wrong.
Let me listen. If we look at a snapshot, okay, it might look like Purdy's doing well. Hell, there's crypto out here too. So I mean, you can hang on to that if you want to. I'm gonna play the odds. Watson got better long-range odds, right? I'm playing the odds here. I'm not playing 6 games.
Right.
I'm banking on the fact that Watson's gonna be better. Purdy, take Purdy, put him on the Browns. You think the same production comes
I wish
here?
we could do that.
No,
We'd have an answer.
But if he was on the Browns,
listen,
Brad,
wh-
you could sign every free agent you ever
Here's
dreamed
the
of.
And here's the thing I'll say to that. Like, Jacoby Brissett
here's the problem.
played great with this team.
Here's the problem with that thinking, right? If Watson does what we think he can do, the whole thing is elevated. It is, right? It didn't happen this year.
That's a massive if.
Well, listen, hey, you're banking on something, historical values here.
Right.
Right? Purdy has no historical values.
So let me bring
None.
the financial piece of
Because
this in.
what happens
because
to
that's
Purdy?
huge.
What happens this weekend when Purdy goes down in flames? Because he's going down in flames.
We're going to find out.
going down
I
in
do- by
flames.
the way, I do think this will be his biggest test.
Because I tell you why.
Defensively, this
Let-
will be. If he does it again this week,
By the way, Brock Purdy, if you watch him, doesn't have a big arm.
Let me tell you what.
he makes throws.
You're going
I mean,
down.
everybody makes
you're
throws,
going
but
down.
he don't have a big
You're going
arm.
down in flames now because I've got a week of tape on you.
Okay, so
There's a game plan for
well,
you.
every team though has had
There's a-
5 weeks,
there's-
6
there-
weeks,
here,
4 weeks,
there's
3
a
weeks.
game
You
plan
really
for you.
believe? You don't really believe this, right? You
No,
just
let's
leave
listen,
out-
listen,
let-
for the
let-
record, I asked Jay to be my defense attorney.
Yeah, I got you.
Yes, he did.
And I think the right answer, and we'd all take Watson. But I do think there is a case to be made.
Right.
No,
so here's the
not.
deal.
Side.
I think it's a fascinating discussion.
yeah.
At the bar.
He asked me yesterday in the gym when I was working out, so I probably wasn't focused. But he asked me, would you take Purdy over Watson? I'm like, hell no. And he said, well, here's the thing. It's an interesting question, and I do think this is an interesting discussion, and I'm going to try to
Because
add.
he's played extremely well out of nowhere.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, look, no, I'm not taking Brock
And
Purdy.
neither am I. For the
But
record, hand
there
up.
are
We're all
defense
taking Watson.
attorneys that have to defend guys that they know they're guilty, and they have to compile a body of evidence. They have to build a case. They have to build questions to ask all of the witnesses. So I went to work and I said, okay, let me try to make a case for this guy. Do I believe it? No. But I'm going to do my best to sell it.
All right.
And here's how I would present my case. And I would start with cost.
Okay.
Because that's a huge piece of this. It is with any NFL team. This season, Deshaun Watson cost the Browns $46 million. That's a fact. He will cost them $45 million guaranteed each of the next 4.
Okay.
No player in football has that much money on their guaranteed contract.
Okay.
So that's got to be considered here. Over the next 4 years, Brock Purdy will cost the 49ers under $4 million.
And if Brock Purdy goes down in flames, how long will Brock Purdy be around to have this discussion?
So here's what you're asking. You're asking is if you're willing to make a $45 million investment for 4 years, that can't be a guess. That's got to be a sure thing. It has to be.
First of all, there's no thing out here known as a sure thing, right?
No, there is not.
You're hedging your bets here,
yes,
right?
And
everybody
to that point,
out here
Brett, you're making my point.
Everybody
right
out here is a bet. I'm betting on that Watson's going to be the guy that I think he
Yeah,
is, right?
yeah.
And Purdy, I'm betting on the fact that Purdy's going to be the position that he was drafted to be.
Even
He's
the
going to be that guy.
the 49ers didn't think he was going to be good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought Jimmy Garoppolo back.
Nor did the Patriots think that Tom Brady was
But he was
gonna
their
be good.
backup.
Yeah, but he
wasn't third string.
They had two quarterbacks on their roster. They did carry a third, but he was their. So
right,
you're right.
but Brady was number 2. Purdy was number 3.
Yeah, but he was a rookie quarterback, drafted 199 behind Drew Bledsoe for one reason: to be an insurance policy. That was it.
Purdy's
right, but the Niners didn't even want to have Purdy
Now,
as an
let me-
insurance policy, or they wouldn't have brought back Garoppolo.
Let me finish laying out my case. So, if you're going to bet $45 million on a horse, you can't think he's going to win. You have to know he's coming in first. You have to know that. Because you're not betting $45 million otherwise.
You don't
So
know.
the
You're
deal
thinking
with
that
Purdy
he
is-
is.
No, I get what he's saying. With,
and the other
with
thing,
Burrow
Bill,
and
you'll understand
Mahomes,
this.
you know, and Allen,
It is a lot easier to win a Super Bowl in the NFL with a quarterback on a rookie contract, provided you have all the other pieces. I'll give you Russell Wilson. As soon as Russell Wilson got out of his rookie contract, the Seattle Seahawks' success in the playoffs was done.
The Eagles, Carson Wentz.
Eagles and Carson Wentz. It's happened a lot.
That wasn't about Carson Wentz wasn't good.
Carson Wentz went south, and that killed them too. But
Tom Brady won plenty of Super Bowls without being on a rookie contract.
You're going to do
So
it.
did
But what I'm
Manning,
saying is, if
so did
you can
Roethlisberger.
get the kind of play out of the quarterback position that Brock Purdy has given this team for 1/3 of a season, and that's a very small sample size, and your honorable defense attorney here admits that.
Okay.
We're dealing with a very small sample size. We're also dealing with a sample size the same size for Deshaun Watson. I'm taking everything out of what he did before he came to Cleveland.
You can't do that.
Yes, you can,
No, you
because
can't.
you even said his swagger's gone.
No, but here,
He's
but you
lost
can't.
his
But
swagger.
you're betting on a body of work.
Yeah.
He has a body of work.
But I didn't see
And
that.
Hey,
this
who do you
year.
think
He
Kyle
has-
Shanahan would take?
Hold on, Bull. He got a body of work going back to Clemson. All right, he has a body of work.
Well, at some point, Carson Wentz has a body of work, and he's going to be out of football.
Where did Carson Wentz come from?
Carson Wentz was an MVP until he
Where
got
did
hurt.
he come from?
What does that matter?
Carson Wentz
body of
played
work.
like an MVP for
A
12
body of
weeks.
work.
No.
Deshaun Watson's played at an MVP level his entire time in Houston.
Oh, that is not true.
That is true.
No, that is absolutely
That's completely
not true.
true.
He played at an MVP level
Yes.
each of his seasons, and
Yes.
that's not true, Bull.
He played. He
He had one season where
I'll say he played at a Pro Bowl level in all his time in Houston.
Was he a Pro Bowler every year? He wasn't.
He played at a Pro Bowl level. Joe Burrow wasn't. Let me ask you this: was Joe Burrow?
Here's the thing,
Joe.
Bill.
Hold on. Was Joe Burrow? Did Joe Burrow play like a Pro Bowler last year?
Yes,
He didn't make the Pro Bowl.
No, I know.
He has 3 Pro Bowls.
But here's the point that I'm trying to
and
make
he only
here.
played 3 full seasons.
Here's the point I'm trying to make here, in vain.
Come on.
I'm basically asking myself, which is the better bet? Under $1 million a year for production that, at least in this small sample size, is clearly better.
You're being.
And by the way, we do have a playoff game, and I expected. I was pretty bold in saying this to some buddies of mine who are friends of the Niners. I said, your team's run ends against Seattle because your quarterback's going to choke. It's the playoffs.
Let me ask you a question.
And Seattle's not really a
let me ask you a question.
They have a good defense,
Let me ask you
Seattle
a question, because everything you lead,
defense is horrible.
everything you lead
No,
with,
it's not.
Horrible.
They
Go look
played
at it.
very well.
Jay-
I thought they did very well Sunday.
Jay-
They could have won
But
the
their
game.
defense has been horrible. For the
Jay,
season.
everything you lead with is about the money. Take the money out of it.
I can't.
No, I have to.
No, I
I'm
know you
asking
can't.
Okay.
You asking,
All
no. You're asking me a hypothetical. I'm asking you to take the money out of it.
But the reason
take
you
the
can't,
money out of it and
well,
tell me which one.
If you take the money out of it, you're leaving the biggest factor out of the
That's it.
equation.
And ultimately, you
can't
don't make
do that.
decisions on quarterbacks based on money.
Sometimes you do. Yeah, you do. Not always, but here's
losers
what
do.
you don't. Well, you make a good point in this. If you know you have your guy,
Right.
you write the check.
So what's your percentage chance that Watson gets back to a Pro Bowl level? Percentage chance.
It went down after seeing him in 6 games this
Okay,
past
so what's
year.
your what
He
would
asked
you
you
say
a-
is your
asked you for a
percentage
number.
chance?
Before I ever saw him play, this year,
Stop hedging. Just give me a
I
number.
felt there was probably an 80% chance he would be named to at least one Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
After watching him play this year, I'd say that's bumped down to a 65%.
But not naming
chance.
to a Pro Bowl because you got Burrow and Allen and whatever, so it's not going to be easy every year. But playing at that level where you could be in the Pro Bowl, you'd still say those
I'll
numbers?
tell you this.
Yeah.
Let's just say this. The odds that he returns to the play that he had when he won 4 games in his last year
Right.
with Houston, when he personally had huge numbers,
Right.
but the team had no success. The chance
the team
of
had no
him
talent.
getting back to that level,
Yeah.
for me, went down pretty significantly
So
over
what,
the
so
last
what
year.
number?
I'd say maybe it was 85% before,
Yeah.
and maybe it's 65% now. And the reason I have major concerns now about it
Yeah.
is because the piece that you talked about. Every great player has that edge, that swagger that they walk onto the field with. Brady lost that this year. And we saw him take a step back in the things he can do physically.
Yeah.
But I also think a part of what was missing from Tom Brady this year, and he even admitted this in his podcast on Monday, he admitted that one of the things that he was not in touch with this year was that I'm the greatest ever to do it.
Right.
He lost touch of that.
So for
and
me,
I think our
yeah.
guy has too, and you even said he has.
Well,
For
here,
me, guys, for me, it was 99% coming into
come
this
back
year.
to me on this.
And now it's lower. It's probably like 80, but it's still
Wait,
85.
it was
Still
what was it?
99.
Wow. It must have been for the Browns too.
Absolutely.
Now I'm factoring
But
in
to me, the odds of Purdy ever playing at a Pro Bowl level for a season is like 5%.
So let me say this.
But
Boo.
you're only paying him less than $1 million a
Here,
year.
so-
I know, but
I'm not.
I think there's almost no chance of him ever being a Pro Bowler, and I can't win.
All right. I'm not.
They're not
I'm
going to win the
not, I'm
Super
not
Bowl.
motivated.
If they do, I'll apologize.
I'm not motivated by the money, right? I'm motivated by what I think in the long run is going to be the best for the organization. I think if I had the choice between the two, I'm taking Watson. I'm going to bet on that. The other thing I talk about, you talk about Tom Brady. Let me tell you what happened to Tom Brady. Tom Brady get on a podcast and talk about, I didn't have this. Let me tell you what the problem with Tom Brady is. He's old.
He admitted that.
He's old.
Of course.
Let me tell you something. Father Time has won every race.
It's undefeated.
There's nobody here has
And I think
survived it.
everybody agrees that this is the year that we physically saw him get old.
This
At
is
the same
it.
time, when you look at his numbers for the year, they were ridiculous.
Yeah, but I told you last week when we were talking about, I said he played like garbage, or what he played the other day, like garbage, right? Because the window has closed for Tom.
Right, but I think
the great
Tom
one-
knows that too.
No, the great ones are the last to learn it.
Yeah, but Tom knows.
Because the great ones in their mind are like this. I'm still great.
Tom is verbalized.
No, you're
this,
not.
though.
You're not great anymore.
Tom will
I don't
acknowledge
think he's
that
garbage, though.
Oh,
No,
he's
not.
bad. Oh,
He's
he's
not
bad.
garbage.
Oh, he's bad.
Brad, here's what he was.
bad.
I've never seen a team throw the ball 66 times in one game.
He's bad.
They telegraphed to the opposition, which is why
Yeah.
they fired their offensive coordinator, why they lost to the Browns. They could have beat the Browns if they just kept the ball on the ground. They refused to do it.
Yeah.
Tom-
They lost in the playoffs for one simple reason.
What's that?
They told the Cowboys, "Oh, we're not running."
I still think
We're throwing the ball
I still
every
think
down.
Tom Brady could be adequate in a better situation.
Let me tell you something.
But we'll
adequate.
find out next year. I don't
Yeah.
think he's going to come back at
People
Tampa Bay.
here are when you see Brady, you do like this. You're looking for the Brady that you knew. He's done.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not either.
that
I
Brady's
never
done.
liked.
No,
I never
if
liked
you're
Tom
Brady
looking
is
for the
done.
Brady we knew, you're wildly
That
kidding
Brady is
yourself.
done.
Brad, I've
No.
never liked Tom Brady. Look,
I'm not
obviously, I
talking about
respect
you.
the
I'm not
greatness,
talking about you guys.
But I'm saying like I root against him. I've always rooted against him. I've never wanted him to win. But I still got to recognize like he clearly wasn't the same player. But he was clearly asked to throw the ball this year an absurd amount of time. to ask the oldest quarterback in the league to throw the ball more than any other quarterback.
Their
is crazy.
run-pass ratio was the most out of whack we've ever seen.
He wanted to throw the ball.
Well, that's fair. There's probably some of that too.
He thinks he's still great.
You can't throw it 66 times.
Can he
You throw it
reinvent
40
himself
times,
for one more year?
Man,
It'd
no.
be interesting to see
Absolutely
if the
not.
rumors are true.
I hope
and
nobody spend no money on it.
He gets with, I don't even know if he's going to come back and coach. We don't know yet. But if Sean Payton does come back and Brady decides to hook up with Sean Payton, I think that is one of the things that we have to say, well, we're going to have to watch that with great interest.
You could bring Brady back with who was the coach in Green Bay back in the day? The great coach.
Holmgren?
Oh my God.
Bart Starr.
No.
Or, Vince Lombardi.
You bring back
but
Lombardi.
Vince Lombardi coached a different game.
Paul Brown. Paul Brown could still get the best out of Tom Brady.
Now, Jay, you remember
Mike
this?
Brown.
Jay, you remember this? What did Jordan look like at the end?
He was bad.
How bad?
Yeah, but you know
How
what?
bad?
Scored 20 points a game.
But he was still an adequate NBA player.
But for his level,
It was bad.
he was
But that's
what?
all I'm saying.
He was
For
bad.
him, he was
right. But
what
I'm
you
saying
expected
for
from
Brock
Jordan, seeing him
Purdy,
in that-
he good.
What were Brady's touchdown to interception
You're
numbers?
bad.
He threw for 4,800 yards.
28-9 or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Damn
not
good, man. No, that's great.
Man, he couldn't get the Tampa Bay
28-9?
Buccaneers moving the other
For
day
him,
to
that's
save
not
his soul.
great.
No, but for anybody else, I'm going to take that.
The yardage numbers are skewed by the amount of
Because they
times he
threw
threw
so
the
much.
ball.
Right.
But
Yeah.
still.
It was 25-9, excuse me.
Here's what we'll find out. And
Yeah.
because history, the
Right.
future will determine this argument one way or another.
Okay.
To me, and I've said this all along, I said this before they made the trade when it was in the works. Fine with the trade. I wouldn't do it. Fine with the trade to bring Watson here. But it is only a success if he
it
wins
works.
the
If
Super
it
Bowl,
works.
period.
You
Period,
said that.
full stop.
I'll give you credit.
Nothing else.
You said that from the beginning.
And I'm going to stick to
Yeah,
that.
you said it from the
It
beginning.
is an all-in move, and all-in isn't finishing second in
Yeah,
the Super
yeah,
Bowl.
yeah.
All-in
No,
is
that's
winning
true.
the Super Bowl. So if Deshaun Watson brings the Super Bowl to Cleveland, all of this becomes white noise.
6 games is not a work in progress.
Now, what if Purdy does go on, and
Yeah.
I think they're going to lose this weekend in
Last
Dallas.
point,
But
then
what
we're
if
gonna go.
Purdy wins the Super Bowl this year?
But he's not.
He may
But if-
not, but
but if he
right now
does-
there's 8
but if he
quarterbacks
does-
that can say they have a chance,
But
and he's in
but
there.
if he does, the country will say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
That's right.
That's what
And
they
then he won't
do.
be. But the last thing, I'll say, quick point, is that I think there's a difference between the trade. What did you say? The trade is a win only if he wins. What was the exact words you used?
a success.
The trade's a success if he wins a Super Bowl. Yes, I agree with that. However, if he's great for the next 10 years for the Browns, and they're consistently in the playoffs, let me finish my point, consistently in the playoffs, but don't ultimately win a Super Bowl, you could say the trade was not a success. But you could also say, I understand why they did it. It made sense that they did it. It wasn't a mistake. It's a mistake if they suck, if he's never the same player.
Okay, let me
then
change
it's
my.
a mistake.
I'll change my thesis then.
Yeah.
Based
Last
on your point, because it ain't happening. If Deshaun Watson is the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns in 2033,
Yeah.
this trade was a success. Super Bowl
Yes.
or not,
Yes.
that ain't happening.
2033. That's 10
He said 10 years.
That's 10 years.
Why wouldn't it happen if he plays at a high level?
You're projecting him
He'll be
to
36.
still play at a
That's
high
possible.
level at 36 years old.
Well, I'm not saying he's going to still be great at 36 years old.
If
but
he's
I'm saying
still the quarterback here, though, of the Browns, that
Yeah.
means that they've re-signed him to 2 more contracts. Not 1, 2 more.
Yeah, maybe.
If he gets any quarterback that gets 3 contracts in the city,
But you don't think
is
they're
successful.
I'm expecting Joe Burrow to play the next 12, 14 years for the Bengals.
fair, he's younger.
Yeah, not that much younger though. What, 2
And
years?
He's 1 year
I'll
younger.
tell you this too: his style, what makes him great, is sustainable. He's a pocket passer,
Yes.
so what he does.
But Deshaun Watson is a pocket passer too.
Deshaun Watson relies on his legs, though. He does.
But-
and to
but
bank
Deshaun
on a
Watson doesn't
quarterback.
run the ball that much.
No, but the threat that he may go makes him better in the pocket. I think you'd agree with that.
All right,
Right, but
guys.
that doesn't. That's not a. That doesn't. Well, I don't know.
we
He's
gotta
got a
move
huge
on.
10 years,
arm.
I'm
gotta
just saying,
move on.
He's
10
not Lamar
years-
Jackson and Jalen Hurts.
10
He's a-
years
he's
is
a-
Lamar
he's a
Jackson
pocket
hasn't been in the
quarterback.
league 10 years.
Guys, we got to
Yeah.
pivot.
We gotta
and
move
Yeah, we
on.
got to make our picks.
We're going to
Gotta
pivot to bold predictions, and the reason we
I
have
think
to
I
get
made
this
a
in-
pretty damn good case for not believing in it.
You did. And
You did
YouTube
that.
chat was a big
I'll
fan
give
of
you
that.
that. You
So, guys, real quick,
you
before we
almost
get to
made me
bold
mad.
predictions, and Jay, you're going to go first on bold predictions. Anthony's not here, so I took the liberty of making headlines this week.
Okay.
If
Are
you
we
guys-
doing these like the newspaper style?
You'll see. Just so you guys know, graphic design is my passion. It's what I went to school for. I love
I thought you-
Photoshop.
Is that true?
I
consider myself elite at the skill. So
I thought comedic relief was your passion.
No,
Not
definitely
He's
Wait
being
not.
sarcastic.
wait till you see my Photoshops.
Okay,
These
so they're
are-
going
I
to be
put a
all-time bad.
lot of effort into these guys, so we had to get them in. Jay, your bold prediction first. Steve, let's take it full.
Yeah, my prediction is I think everybody's rubber stamping.
Oh, these are awful.
What the hell is that?
Oh my God!
That's awful.
Wow.
And what is that weird circle on the messed up bird?
I don't know how to get it out of Photoshop.
Stupid.
Oh my God!
Listen, look, I'm Brock Purdy and Anthony's Deshaun Watson. Who do you want for the next 4 years? There's your
Yeah,
question.
give me
Taking Watson.
Give me Anthony. Yeah, my bold statement this weekend is I think that the Eagles are really going to struggle against the Giants. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be rusty, and something about watching this Giants team last week. They're better than I gave them credit for. I think they've got a puncher's chance, and I think it's going to be interesting.
I give you that.
First game ever where first playoff game in the history of the NFL where both quarterbacks rushed for 700 or more yards during the season.
Well,
Ever?
Ever.
My God.
G. Bush is up next. So
G.
I'm going to read G's. Let's take it, Steve. Jalen's turnovers hurt Eagles and lost to Giants. Nailed it.
Yeah, no question.
oh my God.
Mikey, is that you in the Eagles helmet?
No, that's Hurt.
okay.
That's Jalen. I can see
you guys
it.
kinda
Can you
look
tell
alike.
it's a turnover?
I thought it was
Yeah, it's more like a taco.
I thought it
to
was a
me.
taco.
You know what? There was no PNGs of turnovers. I think it's an empanada, but it's close enough.
I thought it was like a Choco Taco.
No,
Those were
it's
great,
not.
man.
It's a loop.
Not a chocolate.
Stop making those.
Sad.
Idiots.
Bull. Brad, you didn't send us one, so Brad, you just tell us yours.
Oh, well, shit. Here. I didn't send you one?
You didn't send me one.
Oh,
No.
okay. Well, here's the story, right? So I've got Eagles taking down the Giants because the Giants are going to do what they do, right?
They're going to giant.
They're going to giant it, right? Now, here, they've had a great season. It's going down in flames because Philadelphia's just built better than the Giants right now, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. And Daniel Jones, as much as he's getting better, I'm still not a believer that he can't go south on you at any moment.
You know, he did something in the playoff game last week that no other NFL quarterback has ever done in a playoff game.
Fact.
He ran for 300.
I saw it.
He threw for 2. He ran for 1, and he had 70 yards rushing.
So
That is
Again,
a complete picture of what can win
He played really
in
well.
today's
Yeah.
NFL.
Now here, I listen to Saquon. Saquon believes in Daniel Jones. I believe when you get to the playoffs and people have time to really scheme for you, right? They're going to throw you something that you don't expect coming your way. And I think when you do that to a guy like Daniel Jones, you can stymie him just enough to let the Eagles get out on you.
Daboll's a good coach, too.
Yeah. Listen.
good
He's a
Come
great
on now.
coach.
You got mine there, Mikey?
Yeah,
I
you
thought
go-
yours was going to be Purdy shocks the world,
No, I ain't doing that.
stuns the Cowboys.
Purdy going
Well, yours
home.
was
Purdy
very
going to the
hard for me.
Bahamas.
Now I'm kind of
Graphic
rooting
for
for
it.
Purdy this weekend.
I mean, the
So,
Niners are favored.
I'll explain my graphic for Bulls if you guys can't figure it
Yeah.
out. But Bull, without further ado, let's take it, Steve. 111.
See if we can figure
I
it
mentioned
out
this
from the
briefly
hieroglyphics.
yesterday.
What is this?
Or all 4 games will be tight. So, versus the spread, you'll see in a minute. I picked all 4 underdogs to cover. Now,
did.
I think 2 of the underdogs will win, not all 4. But I think we're going to get very close games. I think all 4 games will be essentially decided at the end. I think we're going to get a magnificent weekend.
Seriously?
I hope so.
I think they're all going to
Even
be
the-
close.
the Chiefs.
Even the Chiefs and
Jaguars?
Jags. The Chiefs are too big a favorite. The Jags offense.
I think the Bills are too big a favorite. They're 6.5
Bills are
point
too big a favorite also. The Jags, I know they were terrible in the first half. And if they play like that again, they're getting smoked.
Killed.
But I don't expect them, just like I don't expect them to play as great as they did in the second half, I don't expect them to play as bad as they did in the first half.
Right.
The Jaguars' offense has been great the second half of the year.
Unreal.
And the Chiefs' defense is mediocre.
Not as good as they've been in the past years.
And so I think the Jags can hang in there. Ultimately, the Chiefs win, but I think all 4 games, none of these teams will win by more than 7 points. None of them.
So you
That
mean
means we've got a great
That
weekend
means
of
we'll be
football.
locked to the TV all day.
I think we're going to be locked in.
I hope
I
so.
better get your wings
think
and
we're all
everything
hoping for
together,
that.
right?
The worst thing is when you walk away from one of these games because you want them to captivate
Right.
you for 3.5 hours.
Right.
And
Although this year you can't walk away.
no,
We've seen
don't
so
walk
many
away.
big
It was
comebacks.
27-0 last week, and
Yeah.
I said right before halftime, I'm out of this game unless Jacksonville scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
And my wife, who was half paying attention, goes, "Well, you think that's going to give them a chance. And I said, no, if Jacksonville scores before halftime, they're going to win. And she was like, what? It's 27-0. I go, I know, but we've seen it this year before. Once you're at home and you get that momentum, you don't lose it. The other thing with Jacksonville is I was wondering afterwards how much the jitters of being in the playoffs had to do with that awful first half. And they shook it off at halftime, and they played it like any other game. What a finish.
Yeah.
Do we have any more headlines, or is that it?
We do. We have, let's go to 112. This is Earl's. Earl wanted me to read it. He made one. This might be my masterpiece here. Let's take it, Steve. How about the Bengals steamroll Bills in Buffalo? So, Anthony, please
like
don't
that. I
take
hope
any more
he's
days
right.
off.
Anthony, please come back.
Please. You know what? I think the turnover one was pretty good.
These
Jalen Hurts one.
graphics have been awful.
Actually, that one's so bad it's funny.
My graphic was the best. See what I'm saying? Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it was not.
No,
but you're right.
The turnover one was not good at all, Mike.
Because it looked like a taco.
If you had to explain to us that it was a turnover.
Well, maybe if you ate more pastries bowl, you would just know it's a turnover.
How about you just
Oh,
find
yeah,
a
that's my
picture of
problem,
Jalen
not
Hurts?
eating enough pastries.
You know, how about you find a picture of Jalen Hurts going like this and a football just out of his hands?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Turnover.
I'm gonna peel
Are
back
you
the
really
curtain real quick.
confident, Mikey, as a Giants fan? Do you think the Giants going to win?
Oh, he does.
Yeah, the way Howard Eskin talked yesterday actually made me more confident. You don't sound so confident as someone who covers the Eagles about Jalen Hurts being totally healthy.
Yeah.
If he's actually totally healthy.
No,
That seemed like false confidence.
If Jalen Hurts is not right physically, then the Giants have a very good shot to win. There's no doubt.
I feel pretty good. We have Evan Dammerel joining us now before we give our playoff picks to end the show from Locked On Cavs podcast. What's up, Evan? How you doing this morning? Afternoon.
Good, guys. How are you doing?
Good, Evan. Thanks for joining us. Let's jump right into it. First of all, do we know yet if Donovan Mitchell is playing this weekend? What's the latest on that?
So he's listed as questionable tonight against Golden State.
He practiced.
We'll
Didn't
see.
he practice yesterday?
I wouldn't play him.
He did practice in a limited capacity yesterday. I did spot him at shoot around, just going through free throws, talking to teammates and things like that. So I think that's encouraging if you're the Cavs and if you're a Cavs fan, period. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe the Cavs kind of err on the side of caution and bank on the fact that Golden State had to have a dogfight against Boston last night and give Mitchell that additional night off, just because groin injuries are so tricky at the end of the day. Like, you can feel right for 1 second, then you just tweak it slightly and it just feels awful again. So we'll see how it goes, but he is listed as questionable tonight. So I think at this point it's just how is his body feeling when he gets to the arena this evening.
So I would tell you, Mitchell wouldn't hit the floor for a week, right? It's not even worth it, right? And so I'm not convinced that Curry and them play tonight, right? After a hard game.
A close loss.
Yeah.
Listen, I got Curry on my fantasy team. I need those points.
Kurt said after the game last night that changes are coming.
That's irrelevant because I'm going to tell you.
Not irrelevant to me.
I tell you
I'm
that.
battling for first place.
I'm thinking that Curry and them not going to play tonight. I just don't think so.
Really?
Right? Mm-hmm. Because
Well, then there's no reason to play Mitchell.
You have to start thinking ahead here, right?
Yeah.
You can't have people going down now. You get people going down now, it could be for a long period of time. So
Look at Brad. Brad played in the era where nobody ever sat. Now he's seeing everybody.
This is different now.
Well, that's the way you play it now. That's the way they do it.
They paid you for $2 last time.
Evan, let's just assume for a second that Golden State does play everybody tonight. I thought they played the Celtics very, very tough last night. In the end, it was a loss. Kerr made reference after the game that changes are coming. Any idea what we may see from Golden State tonight, or do you think, to Brad's point, is this a night where on back-to-backs on the road you rest some guys?
I think if you're Golden State, just look at how old, and no disrespect to those guys since I'm just entering my 30s myself, since they're kind of close to me in age, but Klay Thompson's coming off a nasty knee injury. Draymond Green is up there. Steph Curry is just coming back from an injury himself. Like this, I agree with Brad. If you're Golden State, you got to be mindful of not just the game in front of you, but maybe the next few weeks leading up to the All-Star break, and then allow everyone to kind of feel proper heading into the break and then properly get rest up in that time in February. So I would assume that that they would rest them, just me being logical here, but Golden State hasn't submitted their injury report as of 12:30 today, so we'll see what happens and who is and isn't available. But Golden State has a lot of key pieces that could deserve some rest, and they also have a lot of young legs that they could just throw out there against Cleveland. Let them get a little bit of experience, maybe a little bit of confidence, and then maybe that gives Steve Kerr a proper chance to evaluate what those quote-unquote changes are, because they are an odd team. Golden State is dominated at home, but they are not good on the road. Yeah, they did play Boston well, really, really well last night, actually. But maybe this is just an opportunity to rest these guys and then evaluate the rest of your depth chart and then figure out what key changes you want to make leading into and maybe after the All-Star break.
All right.
You know, Evan, we've talked a lot this year about Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland having to develop that chemistry, right? We've seen, it almost seems like they're both a little better when the other guy is not playing. And I guess that's not a surprise because they got to learn to play together. You know, you look at the Celtics and their two stars, like it wasn't perfect with those two guys right away. Now they've played together for so long that they know, you know, so like in reality, it's probably going to, not that they can't win or have success, which they are, but it's going to, for all the people that are like, we got to trade this guy. We got to keep these guys together. Mm-hmm. And in a couple, you know, the Cavs are not winning a championship this year, but hopefully in 2 years, 3 years, those guys have played together. Now they're kind of in sync more, and that's the development. It's hard to think about that long term as a fan, but isn't that the reality that it's going to take a long time, not just a few months, for them to really be able to play their best together?
Yeah, that was always going to be the reality of the situation as soon as you get Donovan Mitchell, who is a guy who succeeds at the ball in his hands. And in Utah, he was the offense for the Jazz. And then you look at Darius Garland, it's pretty similar. Like last season, you saw that explosion from him because he had the ball in his hands and he was creating the offense for everyone. And I think right now, these two are a little ahead of schedule in terms of just looking comfortable with one another on the floor. I thought it was going to be a lot more of a harder adjustment. I do wonder if maybe Garland going down with that eye injury at the beginning of the season forced the rest of the team to get comfortable with Mitchell. And now it's just a little less wrinkles to iron out at this point. But I agree. I think the Cavs are in a very interesting position where other than Mitchell and I guess Kevin Love, since he does have that NBA Finals experience, this is a very green Cavs roster in terms of just playoff experience. And like they have to learn how to get there first and foremost. But it's a tightrope walk that this coaching staff has to balance, where they have to focus on player development for guys like Isaac Okoro and especially Evan Mobley, who people are still kind of waiting to make that year two leap offensively, all while maintaining like this winning pace and being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference and the NBA in general. So it's tough. I think you're starting to see some of the fruits bear a little bit when it comes to just player development working for Cleveland. But I absolutely agree with you, Adam. Like it's going to be not an instant championship. I know fans kind of live in like a micro sense, but you got to look at the macro sense. Like you're going to eventually age out some of these teams. Maybe it's Boston or Milwaukee or especially Miami. And then when your team has that experience and they know what it takes to win, because the playoffs are such a different monster than the regular season, they'll be in a really good spot to maybe contend for a title and also just evaluate what they do and don't have and maybe make the proper adjustments this offseason or next offseason to figure out, okay, what do we need to take that next step to be a championship team?
Hey, Evan, let me ask you this, because, you know, I was questionable, not just me, but a lot of people in this town were questionable on Okoro, but I think Okoro over the last month has shown some signs of progress here, right? So I like what JB's doing and continue the development of him. But what exposed us in the Memphis game, we need another go-to person, right? Because down the stretch of that last second, you see they didn't guard anybody but Darius Garland. That's the only person they were concerned with, right? What are you hearing about the Cavaliers and an acquisition of somebody else other than who's on this roster right now that could just be a threat?
I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Like the Cavs, especially sans Donovan Mitchell, do lack like a reliable second option. They do kind of try to score and win by committee, which is admirable. But when it's tight clutch situations, or if Darius Garland is just facing the majority of the defense, you do need somebody to relieve a bit of that pressure, especially when Mitchell's not out. In terms of names to look at, I know Mark Stein and Chris Fedor mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. I have heard the same. I think Josh Richardson from San Antonio is a name worth watching. Same for Doug McDermott from San Antonio. There's also even guys like Luke Kennard and Robert Covington out in Los Angeles who could be options as well. They may not be like the scoring threat, but they're going to provide you a little bit more of something reliably because, yeah, Isaac Okoro has emerged since the turn of the calendar year. But if you look just in that sense, you're like, great, he's starting to show signs of the player development. You're starting to see signs of this guy was worth a top 5 pick. But if you look at the entire body of work, you need a little bit more of a larger sample size to comfortably say, yeah, Isaac Okoro is the answer for the Cavs. But the bench production just isn't there for Cleveland right now. I think Kevin Love's thumb injury playing a huge factor in that too is a big part of it. And also Ricky Rubio coming back from injury is just a little tricky for them to navigate as well. So I think they do need to go look at the trade market and just say, like, okay, we definitely need 3-point shooting. We definitely need some type of just wing production in general, because that's the biggest flaw in this Cavs roster especially when they gave up Larry Markkinen to get Donovan Mitchell. And I mean, if that's the price you have to pay to get Donovan Mitchell, you obviously pay it, but you do have to kind of recollect and reevaluate things. And I'm pretty sure the Cavs are aware of it, and they're waiting to see what they can work with, just because they are a little limited in regards of assets after getting Mitchell as well.
You would take those guys you just named over Carmelo Anthony?
See, Carmelo would be good as a locker room guy. I just think the defensive questions are there. Like, if you brought him in as like to fill that last roster spot, great. And I think shoot, if you're a jersey collector, like that's a collector's item, of all collector's items to say the least. But I just think you need a guy who's a little bit younger. Maybe if you're looking at just using these assets, it's somebody that you want to gel with this young core and hopefully build with what you're trying to build long term. Like Carmelo could make sense again as like a bench option, and maybe he's more of just like a cheaper version of what Kevin Love provides you. But it's an interesting thought process, because we do have a commenter on Locked On Cavs who says like they should go after Carmelo, or they should go look at like Isaiah Thomas, or just any type of veteran who's out there. And I think maybe they'll broach that topic after the trade deadline when they have the roster fluidity to maybe sign a guy. But we'll see what happens. Like Carmelo, that'd be an interesting name, but I don't know what Carmelo has also been up to since he last hung things up.
Yeah, I wonder what he looks like.
Yeah. Evan, last thing, let's wrap it up with this. I want to go back to the Memphis game, because it's weird, because going into that game, you thought the Cavs had no chance. I mean, you're playing against the hottest team in the NBA, one of the best teams in the NBA. They were 19-2 at home going into that game. The Cavs have not been good on the road. The Cavs are without Donovan Mitchell. Everything pointed to not only a Memphis win, but maybe a Memphis blowout. And it looked like it was heading that way. I think they were down 19. And then they played great, make that run late third quarter. I thought Evan Mobley in the fourth quarter of that game was the best I'd ever seen him play. He was great on offense, great on defense, great on the glass. But in the end, they lose it. Yes, one, what Brad mentions, that Darius Garland is the only guy that's a threat. But also, and I've been very supportive of JB, but I thought he made some huge mistakes. Like, how do you leave a timeout in that situation with the 5-second call and not setting up a play at the end? How much criticism does JB deserve for the way that game ended?
I think the criticism of him and how he handled the late game situation is definitely fair. I agree. Like the 5-second call, those rarely happen. Like, I was surprised the refs called it to begin with, and I was more surprised that it happened in the first place. But clearly the team is rattled at that point. Like they were feeling the pressure of just a very hostile environment. Like Memphis is one of the hardest places to play, especially with the team being so hot right now. The fan base is super engaged and super loud during this entire process. But it's not just that. It's even after the free throw, or when Steven Adams got the second chance opportunity. Even then, if you're Bickerstaff, you should probably call a timeout instead of just letting Garland go the full length of the court and heave up a three-pointer and draw up some type of play out of the timeout. Because, like you said, this Cavs team battled really hard, and I had that feeling heading into this game, like, okay, there's no Donovan Mitchell. This is not a very good road team. They're going in and playing one of the hottest teams in the NBA and also one of the best home teams in the NBA, and the Grizzlies. Like, You chalk this one up as a loss. Hopefully it's not frustrating or an absolute blowout. And it's more so not the players' fault. It's just JB kind of holding on to a timeout when he should have used it. And I don't know. Like, he questioned the foul call on Jared Allen. The league said that was a correct one at the end of the day.
Really?
And he does deserve a little bit of criticism for that, I think. I think Bickerstaff has done a wonderful job just getting his finger on the pulse of this team and developing these guys and getting them to buy in on what he wants to do. But there's just small moments like that where you're like, oh, man, that stinks. Like, it stinks. Because you're like, you can always, hindsight's 20/20, but it's just hard when you look back at it. And I think he does deserve some of the criticism for that, especially because he got his team ready to play in such a hostile environment.
Especially because that's what separates winning and losing in the NBA.
Yeah. And that would have been the win of the year.
It was, to your point, going in, I thought it was a white flag game.
Yeah.
But when you're in it late and you got a chance to win it, you got to manage that thing like it's a playoff game. And there were two instances where I was scratching my head saying, I hope this isn't what we're going to see in the playoffs when you're really under that microscope.
Hopefully JB's getting that experience too. Thanks,
Evan. Evan, great. Thanks. We appreciate it. And really, I mean, JB's trying to figure this out too. You know? He's trying to go through this and figure it out, and the hope is that he will. Evan,
Thanks,
again,
Evan.
thanks. Have a
Thanks,
great
Evan.
weekend.
Thanks, Evan.
Take care, man.
Great weekend. Mikey, you got some business to take care
Yeah,
of.
couple business real quick. We have one super chat today. It's from Halim Youssef. He says the best argument that can be made for a trade is Denzel Ward. We're deep enough at corner, and he is the most value. Newsome was forced to play out of position last year. Signed Sutton from the Steelers to play the slot. So, interesting way to look at that. Got some memberships to promote for just $1.99 a month. You become a part of our starters tier member. That gets you all the custom emojis, loyalty badges. Part of our community post where the conversation goes on after the show for $4.99 a month, less than $5, less than $60 a year. You get all those starter tier perks, overtime videos, member shout-outs, discount codes for merch. You can text us. And today on Overtime, we're doing some viewer questions. Just some of the ones, little teaser for you guys. Someone wants to know, where's the best pizza in Sandusky? That's for Jay. Another one coming.
Cameo.
They want to know Bulls' top 10 NBA players and also your favorite late-night snack.
Why do they want to know my top 10? Shouldn't they want to know Brad's top 10 NBA?
I'll read the full question, but he literally addressed you. It's from Guitaro Man 44.
All right.
Literally says Bull will top 10. So we're going to get into all that. We got 15 questions we're going to answer in 15 minutes. 15 and 15.
And that's our overtime.
And that's our overtime today,
Wonderful.
so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. We're going to do good bet, bad bet real quick. Let's take the standings here. Betting the NFL playoffs.
Oh.
Jason took the commanding 5-1
By the way,
first place title last week, followed by Brad Jay. You're
I'm in the mix.
rear.
What the hell are you talking
By
about?
the way, I'm unhappy with our standings graphic. We got to straighten this out.
What's wrong with it?
We got to be in order. It's
Yeah,
gotta be
I
in
do
order.
think Jason
Yeah.
should be where I am.
Right,
And I
you gotta
should
be in order.
where Tyvis
Okay,
is.
if you guys want to bring this up with the Deshaun Watson of our graphics team. That's Anthony.
I'm going to tell Anthony. I'm going to tell Anthony. He's got to straighten it out.
So you can bring that up with Anthony later.
Yeah.
But this is the week 1 wild card standings. Jason just sent in his picks. We have everybody's picks for the next round. And
Jason just got his picks in?
he did just get his picks in, so they are in on time.
Wow.
Steve, let's go to the first card. I'm not sure
I think
who's
I
first.
again
it's
gave
Jay.
mine as soon as I saw him.
You did. Jay, this
Total
is your card.
knee-jerk reaction.
You're up first.
I think the 8.5 is just too many to give. I think something about Jacksonville. Now, as soon as I say that, Kansas City's going to win 33-3. If you paid attention to my 1-5 record, just go opposite of all my picks, and you're guaranteed to make money.
Why you took Buffalo? You just said there was too many points.
I did.
The offensive line got
because
you
the
worried.
spread that we're giving was 5, right?
It's gone up since.
Yeah, and
so
at 6.5 was the last I saw. And
I
that's
saw
not too bad.
5.5 this morning. I didn't
Okay,
see
I saw
6.5.
6.5. I think early yesterday. I think.
That's the issue with trying to send these out earlier.
I have
The
to
lines
go with
change.
Buffalo though because now I still could have picked Cincinnati and taken the points, but
You guys can always change, by the way.
Buffalo's my pick to win the Super Bowl. I did pick San Francisco to get to the Super Bowl, but with the 3.5 points, I'm picking Dallas. I think if San Francisco wins, it's going to be
Okay.
by a point or two.
Okay.
So that's my picks. I'm sticking to
Next
them.
up is Brad.
Let's go with it, Mikey.
G. Bush took all the favorites, by the way.
Did he really?
Here's my
Yes.
pick. 'Cause I got KC covering against Jacksonville because what you saw in the first half of Jacksonville game, what you're going to see for the entire 60-minute game here. Philly, I just think Philly been playing lights out football all year long, and even with an injured Jalen Hurts, I still think they are going to deliver. And for once in my lifetime, I want to bet for the Cowboys.
You're a Cowboy hater.
I like because they always disappoint.
Yeah, I know they do.
always
I
disappoint.
mean, after their Super Bowl run in the 90s, they've
Right.
done
nothing. So for this time, I'm gonna roll with Dallas, and then I will mention this as well. I'm an Ohio guy through and through. Joe Burrow is Ohio State Buckeye.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna bet against Joe Burrow.
So do you think they'll win outright, or you think that just with those 5 points that they'll cover?
I think they're gonna win outright.
You do?
I do.
I think Bull does, too.
One of the things is, it's gonna be a crazy because I expect Hamlin to be at that game, right? And
I think he's going to lead
He's
the team
gotta
out of the
do
tunnel.
something.
And I think
I bet he
Wave
leads the
flag
team out of
around
the tunnel.
I think it's just gonna be real quirky after that, right? And so-
Yeah, it's going to take a building that's already in an inferno,
Right.
and it's going to drop a bomb in it.
Right.
And that place, I think the key to Cincinnati, if you win the toss, you absolutely defer. You want to stop Buffalo on their first
They
possession.
won't defer. They'll take
They
the
won't
ball.
defer. I know they won't, but they
Does
should.
Cincinnati take the ball first every time?
Not every
No,
time,
not
but
every
they
time.
have
They're-
late in the season, and they're
But
going to.
I just think that here's the disaster scenario for Cincinnati. Hamlin leads them out of the tunnel. The crowd goes even more crazy than they already are. Buffalo gets the ball first, goes down the field, scores a touchdown.
Yeah, so you could get lost.
That's going to be tough momentum
You
to
can
stop.
get lost in the sauce, and you get lost in the moment. Because I will just tell you, from the empathetic side, I understand where T. Higgins was coming from. I heard T. Higgins' comment saying, I'm looking for Hamlin. I want to talk to him. I haven't talked to him. Talk to his family.
That's going to be emotional for both players.
Like, dude. I said,
don't do it.
That's not right now, right? Because
that's interesting.
You're conflating the two things here, right? I just need you to be focused for this 60 minutes.
You know what? I hadn't thought of that, but Bull, I think that's very fair. I don't know.
I hadn't seen that comment.
Because that might
yesterday.
impact the way his human emotion.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
As soon as I read it,
Talk to him after the game.
I think the Bengals right now. Now, I was very confident when going down the stretch of the season. Part of it's a bias, and I try always to not let my biases get in the way, and I usually do a good job. And maybe I'm not right now. I was very convinced that the Bengals were going to win the Super Bowl this year. Now, I don't feel as confident because their offensive. I thought Jonah Williams was going to play. He's not going to play. So they're down 3 starting offensive linemen.
Right.
That's the biggest concern. But Joe Burrow has consistently shown that he can deal with it. He's shown it time and time again. He is unfazed by getting sacked. And he's shown he can deal with it. The Bengals can get the ball quickly. I think they got the best. I think the Bengals have an edge in skill position talent. And I know I'm in the minority on this, but I'll take Joe Burrow over Josh Allen any day of the week. They're both great, but I would take Burrow. I think without Von Miller, the Bills' defense is still good, but not great. I don't think they're going to be able to. I was more worried about the Ravens' pass rush than I was the Bills in terms of getting to Burrow.
Well, without Von Miller, that's
and now
very
they've had
fair.
a chance to practice all week, knowing they're without these linemen and to prepare for it, as opposed to when it happens during the game.
Right.
So on my board, I got all the underdogs covering. I have the Cowboys and Bengals winning outright.
Okay.
I do think the Eagles and Chiefs will win. I just don't think either team's going to cover. Because like I said, I think every game's going to be 7 points or less. One stat I gave it quickly yesterday, I'll give it again for those who didn't hear it. In their last 20 games that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow have played together, they've won most of them, but even when they've lost, they have not lost by more than 3 points when the two of them play together.
Crazy.
Which is a crazy stat. The last
me
time
ask
they
you
lost
this.
by more
Are
than
you
3 with those two was against the Browns.
Are you superstitious?
I'm not superstitious, no.
So a Niners-Bengals Super Bowl wouldn't have you a little on edge?
No.
Okay.
No. If the Bengals
Because both times the Bengals
Lost.
prior to the Rams,
Right.
both times that the Bengals
Bengals
made
lost.
the Super Bowl,
But
they lost to the 49ers.
In both of those Super Bowls, they were massive underdogs and played very well in both of those
They
games.
did. They were all
were
three of
close.
them were close.
Yes, close games.
They lost to California teams.
Yeah.
All close.
Yes, and I think if the Bengals make it to the Super Bowl, they will win it this year. Because if they beat Buffalo and Kansas City with their offensive line, I don't see why. Now, listen, San Francisco and Dallas both have one. Well, San Francisco's got more
They
than
both
one.
have premier pass rushers.
Better pass rushes than Buffalo and Kansas
You
City.
can make an argument they have 2 of the best in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Right. But I don't think any of those teams as a whole, there's no way if somehow the Niners got to the Super Bowl or whatever, I'm not taking any of those quarterbacks to beat Joe Burrow. Matthew Stafford's one thing. I'm not taking Brock Purdy or Dak Prescott or Daniel Jones to beat trust me, I hope it's the Giants.
Well, what about Jalen Hurts?
Now, not Jalen Hurts either. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would actually think from a defensive standpoint, the team I'd least want to play in the Super Bowl would be the Niners.
And it all comes back to Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I would.
It all comes back to Brock Purdy.
I don't think they'll get
no,
there.
it doesn't.
Is that all?
Anyway, I think it's going to be a great
is.
weekend of football. I can't
Yeah,
say.
I do too.
Time for final takes.
Anybody got one?
Well, no, I don't. I forgot. We
Yeah.
haven't been doing final takes. We did it yesterday, and in Mike's defense, he said before the show we were doing final takes.
Right.
And so I don't have one at the moment, but I'm going to try to get one if somebody else wants to start.
All right, you
Go
want to
ahead,
start,
Jay.
Brad?
No, go ahead, Jay.
I'll start with favorite weekends of the year.
Okay.
And the reason I'm using that is because this is my favorite sports weekend of the year. Even more than the Super Bowl, even more than New Year's Day if it lands on a weekend. I love this round because there's 8 left. You've got 8 left. They're the best 8. At least that's what the playoffs have told us so far. And you tend to get really great games at this level that are close. They mean a lot. The reason they mean a lot is that means there's just one untaken step left after this weekend to get to the Super Bowl. And typically we see all-time great performances, whether it's going to be Patrick Mahomes or maybe it's going to be your guy, Joe Burrow. Someone's going to step up and have an all-time great effort. And that's what sports is all about. To make it a great sports weekend, it has to consume the weekend. And the way these games are scheduled and the way they're laid out, each day we're going to have 8 hours between pregame and in-between game and post-game, 8 hours each day, Saturday and Sunday, to get us to the Final Four. After this weekend, to me, you get 2 games next weekend, and then 2 weeks after that, you get 1 weekend. So there's the best 3 games will still be out there for us. But for my money, the best 4 on any one weekend happen this weekend. So enjoy it, have a good time, and if you're betting, bet responsibly. Bet what you're prepared to lose, and you'll be all right.
All right, good call. Let me go to my final take. Let me tell you what I'm excited for. Obviously, good football weekend. I'm a women's college basketball fan, but what I was excited for this week, I'm excited for baseball here in Cleveland.
Wow.
And let me tell you why. The revisions and renovations that are coming to Progressive Field will make this facility one that's enjoyable by all fans. Whether you're a casual fan, person who don't want to sit there for 9 innings, but maybe want to only watch 3 and be entertained by your friends and everything downtown. It is, if you have not seen it, go to the Guardians website and see what renovations are coming to Progressive Field. I will just tell you this, that what they're proposing to be done in a 2-year time frame is miraculous. It is, I think it takes us into the next 25, 30 years. I think that for the fan experience, for whether you're a young child or the most adamant fan about baseball, I think there's something there for everybody. Sometimes I hate when franchises lose their way. Your connectivity between the fan base and the team is what is most paramount here. And the Guardians have made the step, along with the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County, to put the facility in place to make this a world-class facility. I was taken aback by, these are like the original locker rooms of the teams back from the 90s.
30 years old.
So if you can imagine how old and tired the place is, it does not attract new people. If people come to visit your franchise or you're recruiting them, they're not coming because it says something about your team. You won't make the investments in the team. So we're making the investments. I'm hoping that it pays off. And kudos to the Guardians for not only doing the project, they're trying to make it all inclusive to include minorities, small business enterprises, all kind of people to have a piece of the pie to put this facility in the first-class place here in the county and Cleveland. So kudos to the Guardians. Keep doing what you're doing.
People are often scared or get angry about things they don't understand or people they haven't been around, right? If you grew up in a community where everybody is a white Christian male, and then you meet a black person for the first time or a Jewish person for the first time, you might be like, whoa, is that person different? What's with them? I don't know, right? But I think a lot of people try to be like, well, let me get to know this person who's different than I am. And then maybe we realize there are not as many differences as we thought they'd be. Well, this is also the case when it comes to the gay community and the trans community. You know, Tony Dungy is often lauded for being this nice guy. Well, Tony Dungy has once again shown his homophobia and bigotry. And it's way too, it just gets passed over because it's a community that doesn't have as many people out there fighting for them. And you know, sometimes I get it. You grew up a certain way and maybe you don't understand, why does this person feel that way? I'm confused by the whole thing. Okay, that's fine if you're confused. It doesn't mean you have to hate on somebody or treat them poorly just because you don't get it. There's plenty of things in our life we don't get, but be open-minded and listen to certain people the way they feel certain ways. I'm not a religious person. When I bring up my Judaism, it's more about my culture and in a way, my race. That's how I feel of it, than my religion. I'm not a religious person. But I have no problem with people that are religious at all. As long as I'm not forcing my beliefs on you, don't force your beliefs on me. But I'll say this. There's no religion, including Christianity and Judaism, that teaches to hate other people. I may not be the authority on Jesus, but I know that Jesus wanted to love his fellow person, not hate, not discriminate. So don't bastardize religion for your hatred. Thank you.
What are you talking about?
Tony Dungy, once again, he's made anti-gay comments before, and he retweeted some joke that was made about the trans community, about people putting, I didn't want to say what it was because it was just ridiculous,
I didn't
inappropriate.
See it. I mean,
thing.
the reason
he
I
tweeted
thought,
it, then he deleted it, and whatever.
The reason Tony was in the news, as far as I knew, was that he said he was going to attend the pro-life rally, and there were a lot of people that came down on him.
You got 1 minute left, guys.
In the way, hateful things that they were saying about him for that. I know Tony. I would defend Tony on just about any front. I've known Tony for a long time. I find him to be.
It's not acceptable to be.
I've never seen him outwardly hate on anybody.
Well,
so
he's
I must
made
have missed
anti-gay
that.
comments before.
I must have missed that.
Yeah.
I do know that there's another episode right now going on in the sports world where a player for the Flyers refused to wear the rainbow jersey for the pre-skate.
Right.
And was getting eviscerated for not supporting
30 seconds.
the gay community. And I heard a gay person yesterday say, I don't expect him to support it if it's not what he wants to do. And I can't hate on him if that's what his choice is.
Right.
I probably wouldn't support a heterosexual thing if someone made it mandatory for me to do that either. So that's a discussion, a much larger discussion for another time. Overtime's coming up next. 15 questions in 15 minutes. See you there.